Before we drift into the life of the Lich, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. The story of the Lich doesn't start with adventure, or quests, or even heroes. It starts with something older, colder, and stranger. Not with swords clashing or kingdoms rising, but with silence. Silence after destruction. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the whole world forgot how to breathe. Long before Finn, long before Ooh, there was something else, something broken. A world before the one we know, a world shattered by its own hand. They called it the Mushroom War. It's strange to think about, isn't it? That something so colorful, so playful, like Adventure Time, has its roots tangled in something as haunting as the end of the human world. But that's the world Finn was born into. A beautiful garden growing up through the cracks of old concrete. And from that broken world, the Lich was born. Nobody knows exactly how the Lich came into existence. Was he made? Did someone summon him, or was he always just there, waiting beneath everything, like rot in a fallen tree? What we do know is that the Mushroom War wasn't just about bombs and explosions. It was about something deeper, a tear in the fabric of life itself. And from that tear, from that emptiness, the Lich crawled into the world. There's an old theory that the Lich was the result of a magical bomb detonated during that war. Not just a bomb to destroy buildings, but to destroy life. A weapon designed to unmake things. And when that bomb went off, it didn't just scorch the ground, it left behind a stain, a mark on existence itself. That stain took shape. It learned to want, to hunger. Not for food or for gold or for power like other villains, but for death. Pure and simple. The Lich didn't want to rule Ooh. He wanted to erase it, everything. Every voice, every laugh, every memory, gone. Clean slate. Think about that for a second. Most villains in stories want something, right? A throne, a treasure, revenge, control. But the Lich? He's different. He's hunger itself, hunger wearing bones like a cloak. Even his voice, that slow, curling whisper like smoke around your ear. You are weak. You are soft. Chilling, isn't it? Some say the Lich is just death in a body. Others think he's more than that. He's the death of everything, like entropy given a face. The final breath of the universe walking on two legs. And long before anyone in Ooh knew his name, the Lich was already working, silent, patient, waiting. And he's just waiting. Not rushing, not scrambling. Because that's the thing about pure evil. It doesn't get impatient. It knows everything dies eventually. But not everyone was going to sit back and let that happen. Before Finn, there were heroes, old heroes, forgotten names lost to time. We don't know their stories in full, but we catch glimpses, tales of warriors and mages, of ancient creatures rising up to push back the tide of death the Lich brought with him. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the world of Ooh is so strange. Magic mixed with ruined technology. Wild, silly creatures sharing space with ancient cosmic forces. It's all the leftovers of a battle too big for most people to remember. And standing at the center of it all, like a black hole wearing bones, was the Lich. Now here's something really curious. Even before he shows up properly in the show, his influence is everywhere. Little hints, little echoes, cursed places, strange magical ruins. Things broken in ways that don't make sense unless you know something dark passed through them long ago. That's the thing with true evil. It doesn't always scream its arrival. Sometimes it just lingers. And yet, even with all that silence, with all that quiet evil, there's one thing about the Lich that always stands out. His eyes. If you ever notice, when they animate the Lich's face, it's those empty, glowing eyes that stick with you. No pupils, no light. Just hunger. Watching. Like they already know how your story ends, and they're just politely waiting for it to catch up. It's unsettling, but also weirdly poetic. The idea that something ancient and cold could be hiding in the ruins of the old world, just watching the next chapter of existence like someone reading a book they already know the ending to. And yet, despite all that, life found a way to keep going. Flowers growing through cracks in the sidewalk, little animals learning new tricks, people laughing again, telling stories by campfires. Because that's what life does. Even with monsters like the Lich standing in the ashes, life doesn't stop. But the Lich wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. And as we drift further into his story, you'll see how that hunger, that slow, patient hunger, starts to creep closer to the lives of the heroes we've come to love. But that's coming soon. For now, let's stay here, in the beginning, in that strange echoing silence before the adventure starts, before the heroes arrive, just us, and the quiet hum of something ancient waiting in the dark. So, let's stay here a little longer together, right at the edge of where things begin, before Finn, before Jake, before the Candy Kingdom or Ice King's silly nonsense. There was just that slow, creeping shadow. The Lich's first whispers through the world were probably missed by most. You know how the darkest things don't always arrive with a bang. They arrive as a feeling first. A place where plants don't grow. A doorway you don't want to open but don't know why. A cold draft in a warm room. And as strange as it sounds, it's almost beautiful in a way. The idea that this evil began as a kind of silence. Not shouting, not lightning or flashing lights, just this silence. And somewhere in that silence, the Lich began moving. No armies, no banners, no declarations of war, just one figure, walking slowly across dead fields, wearing that bone crown like a king of nothing. Some say the Lich didn't even speak at first. Why would he? What does death need words for, and words are for life? The Lich doesn't deal in life, only in endings. It wasn't until the first heroes began rising to stop him that the Lich truly revealed himself, not just as a creeping rot, but as an intelligent, thinking force. He wasn't just a mindless wave of destruction. He was aware. He had plans. He knew what he was doing, and that's what made him so terrifying. And this is the part of the story that always gives me chills. Even with all the magic and ancient powers rising up to fight him, the Lich didn't panic. He didn't get angry. He didn't rush. Because he didn't see those heroes as enemies. He saw them as delays. You don't get angry at a sandcastle for delaying the tide. It's just something you walk through on your way to the horizon. And somewhere deep in that rotten heart of his, I think the Lich almost found it amusing. Little beings thinking they could stop the inevitable. Flowers standing up to a wildfire. But those ancient heroes tried anyway. And that's where the first real battles of the Lich's story began. Hidden in old ruins now, forgotten in bedtime stories. The kind of legends that echo in the corners of the world but never make it to the center stage. Maybe that's why by the time Finn's story begins, the world is already so broken. So strange. Why is there a post-apocalyptic wasteland filled with cute candy people and magical rainbows? Because those ancient wars, those desperate fights against the creeping hunger of the Lich left scars everywhere. That's what makes Adventure Time so beautiful to me. It's silly on the surface, but underneath, it's heartbreakingly deep. Every silly joke from Jake, every weird little quest, they're all happening on top of the ruins of something much, much older and much, much sadder. And at the center of that sadness is him, the Lich. Now here's a curious thing about evil like that. It's not loud because it doesn't have to be. And that's what makes it stick in your mind. You ever hear a song and forget it a day later? But that one weird, creepy moment in a show or movie, that stays with you. A little chill up your spine when you realize something's off. That's the Lich's whole personality. And still the world kept turning. The sun rose. People laughed. Even when evil is walking right beside you, life, stubborn little life, keeps moving forward. One of the things I love most about Adventure Time is that balance. The show doesn't pretend that evil isn't there. It doesn't hide it. But it also doesn't let that evil win. Not really. Sure, the Lich is terrifying, but he's surrounded by stories of bravery and silliness and kindness. It's like the universe itself whispering, yeah, bad things exist, but look at this pancake. Look at this cute dog who loves to stretch his limbs. Look at these friends who would cross a desert for each other. But underneath that sweetness, that creeping hunger never fully went away. And remember, this is just the beginning. The Lich hasn't even really entered the story yet. Right now, we're still in that silent breath before you open the door. Before the villain steps into the light and says, hello. But before that moment, before the conflict begins, the world had to get ready. Heroes had to rise, powers had to gather. And the Lich, he had to wait. Waiting in silence like frost crawling across glass. Quiet, patient, icy. Sure that everything he saw would one day belong to the void he carried inside. It's almost elegant in a weird, terrible way. And that brings us to something I always find fascinating, the concept of inevitable evil. Stories usually give you villains that can be beaten, dragons to slay, towers to storm. But the Lich is different. He's not just a bad guy. He's the shape of the universe winding down, the slow tick of a clock as it runs out of minutes. No wonder he didn't seem afraid of anyone. But heroes don't rise to defeat easy enemies. Heroes rise to fight the impossible, to spit in the face of inevitable, to look at the creeping dark and say, not yet. And that's why the story matters, not just because of the Lich's hunger, but because of the resistance to it. Because even though the Lich is this ancient, cosmic horror, he's not the only thing the world is made of. It's also made of people like Finn, like Jake, like Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, and even Ice King in his broken, bizarre way. It's made of people who refuse to give up, even when the odds are cosmic and cruel. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're still in the old world right now, standing in those long, empty shadows, looking out at a horizon we can't fully see yet. The part of the story where you don't know if the heroes will win or if the darkness will swallow everything before the first adventure even starts. For now, just stay here with me. Listen to that soft, empty wind blowing across broken cities. Listen to the memory of laughter, echoing faintly through forgotten ruins. And listen, if you can, for that slow, steady whisper in the distance. The voice that isn't quite here yet, but is definitely coming. You are weak. You are soft. But we're not there yet. We're still at the beginning. And beginnings are beautiful. Somewhere out there, the world slept, even as the end walked closer. Maybe that's the thing about life. It doesn't want to believe in endings. It wants to believe in mornings, in pancakes, in silly songs. But even as kingdoms rose and fell, that creeping cold never really left the world. Now legends tell of an ancient catalyst, something that woke the sleeping darkness. Maybe it was the war. Maybe it was the selfishness of those long-forgotten kings and queens. Or maybe it was just time. Like a seed buried in the ground, waiting for the right season to bloom, the Lich was inevitable. And when he finally arrived fully, oh, it was terrifying. See, most villains come with an introduction, a loud speech, a big fight. The Lich, he arrived like a breath of winter that turns warm rivers to ice, silent, unstoppable. And with him came the decay of everything living. Flowers curled up like fists, trees sagged like old bones, even light itself seemed to hesitate, like it wasn't sure if it wanted to shine anymore. And still the Lich smiled, or at least that horrible skull-like grin he wears, like a mask stretched over the absence of a face. It wasn't hunger for food. It wasn't greed for treasure. The Lich didn't want anything in the usual way. He just was hunger. Hunger for nothing. Not emptiness like a blank page, but emptiness like a page that's been burned to ash. The kind of nothing you can't recover from. And it's here that something truly chilling happens in the story. You start to realize that the Lich doesn't need armies. He doesn't need loyal followers or magic spells with big flashy lights. The Lich has something worse, inevitability. You can almost picture it, can't you? Brave warriors standing against him, shouting their last battle cries as he calmly raises a hand. And all that shouting just becomes dust. No screaming, no fight, just nothing. Like a candle being snuffed out before you even saw the flame. But then, here's where it gets interesting. Someone fought back. Someone actually stood up in that storm. An ancient hero whose name has long been forgotten. We don't know their face. We don't know their kingdom. All we know is they said no. No to oblivion. No to the crawling hunger. No to the idea that everything has to end in rot. It wasn't a victory. Not really. You don't beat something like the Lich with just a sword or a spell, but you can delay it. You can push it back, if only for a while. And that's exactly what that ancient hero did. Somewhere deep in that battle that shook the bones of the earth itself, they didn't win, but they sealed the Lich away, buried him, locked him in chains older than memory, not gone, never truly gone, but contained. Think of it like this. You can't get rid of winter, but you can build a fire. You can gather your friends. You can light candles. You can tell stories by the hearth and keep the darkness outside, scratching at the windows but never quite making it inside. And so the world began again, broken but alive. A scarred survivor of an ancient war that no one quite remembers anymore. The ruins of those old kingdoms became forests. The battlefields became rivers. And over time, people forgot why some places felt wrong. Why some caves whispered when the wind blew just right. But the evil never went away. It was just waiting, locked behind seals of magic so old even Princess Bubblegum's smartest machines couldn't fully understand them. Generations later, the kingdoms of the Candy People and the Fire Nation would rise, not realizing they were building their bright little cities on the bones of forgotten horror. You know, I always think about that when watching Adventure Time. All that silliness, all that bright candy and goofy songs, it's all happening on top of ancient sorrow. It's like laughing on a battlefield years after the war ended. Beautiful, but a little bit haunted, too. And somewhere, in that deep slumber of the ancient sealed evil, The Lich waited. No thoughts of revenge, no rage, just that same cold certainty that one day the door would open again. Someone would get curious, someone would get greedy, and the locks would fail. Because that's the thing about evil. You can lock it away for 1,000 years, but all it takes is one weak link, one mistake, one curious fool poking around in places they don't understand. And eventually, someone would. I like to imagine that even while the world danced and played and fell in love, the Lich was still somewhere out there just smiling. Not in happiness, but in inevitability. Like the ocean smiling at a sandcastle. Like winter smiling at a dying leaf. And here's the wild part. Adventure Time never tells you all this directly. It leaves you little crumbs, little echoes in the background, skeletons hidden in far-off dungeons, ruins scattered across forgotten landscapes. The world itself is a graveyard wearing a party hat. And I think that's why the Lich feels so real as a villain. Not because he's loud, but because he's patient. And honestly, isn't that what makes fear really sink into your bones? Not the jump scares, the waiting, the knowing that something is out there, somewhere, waiting for its moment to return. So here we are, sitting at the start of the story, standing on top of those ancient ruins, surrounded by candy people and silly wizards and stretchy dogs. But underneath it all, the quiet breath of something ancient. Something older than kingdoms, older than bedtime stories. Something waiting to wake up. And that's where we find ourselves now, right here, with the story barely beginning. The heroes not yet called, the adventures not yet unfolding. Just the world, waiting. Like the whole planet is holding its breath, unsure if the next inhale will be fresh air or smoke. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt something wrong? Maybe no one said anything, nothing was broken, but the feeling was there. That's what the land of O was like in those early days, even if nobody could really explain it. A quiet tension, stretched thin, like a thread ready to snap. And under that tension, the sealed evil, the ancient hunger, the thing no bedtime story could quite put into words without scaring the children too much. But this is where stories like these matter, I think. It's not just about fighting monsters or saving kingdoms. It's about standing at the edge of something terrifying and choosing to live anyway, choosing to laugh anyway, choosing to eat pancakes on a Saturday morning, even if you know somewhere far away there's a monster dreaming of eating the world. That's what makes the Lich special as a villain. He's not interesting because of his big skull face or creepy green glow. He's interesting because he represents that feeling we've all had before. That quiet, nagging fear that things might fall apart. That something might be broken beyond fixing. But Adventure Time doesn't stop there. It says, yeah, things break. Things fall apart, but things grow back, too. Even in a world that's basically post-apocalyptic, we have bubblegum building kingdoms out of literal candy. We have Marceline, the vampire queen, still learning how to love after centuries of loneliness. We have Finn, just a weird, brave little human kid, trying to save people not because he has to, but because he wants to. That's the heartbeat underneath all of this. Evil exists. The Lich exists. But so does hope. And they can both stand in the same room together. Now, if you were standing next to those ancient heroes, back when the Lich first rose, you probably wouldn't have felt that hope. It probably felt like standing on the beach with a tsunami on the horizon. The waves pulling back, the sky turning dark, the air itself tasting strange. But someone stood anyway. Someone said, not yet. And I like to believe that's what echoes through the world of Adventure Time, even if those ancient names are lost, even if their kingdoms have turned to dust and nobody remembers their faces. The choice they made still matters. It's like when you plant a tree knowing full well you'll never sit in its shade. But you plant it anyway, for whoever might come after you. That's the kind of courage that lasts. And so the Lich was sealed away. Maybe not forever, maybe not perfectly, but enough. Enough that life got another chance. Enough that silly songs could fill the air again. Enough that somewhere out there, someone like Finn could be born into a world broken, but still worth loving. The scary part, though, even sealed, the Lich wasn't really asleep. He was thinking, waiting, like a chess player sitting quietly across the board, already planning his next 10 moves, while his opponent is still learning the rules. And you can almost hear that whisper, can't you? That patient, awful whisper curling at the edges of every happy scene, promising softly, fall, decay, end. But not yet. Not while there's still someone standing. Not while there's still one match left to strike. Not while there's still one hero willing to walk into the dark and say, "I'm not afraid of you." And that brings us right up to the part where Finn's story begins. Right up to the moment when that long-forgotten evil, locked away beneath layers of old magic, finally starts to stir again. Right up to the point when that whisper begins to grow louder, curling its way into dreams, into forgotten temples, into cracks in the ancient spells holding the Lich prisoner. Right up to the moment where adventure calls, not because the world is ready for it, but because it's coming anyway. But before we rush ahead, let's stay here a moment longer. Let's sit with this ancient story, like you would sit by the fire listening to someone tell you a tale that feels both old and new all at once. Because this is what bedtime stories are for, right? Not just for putting us to sleep, but for helping us face the scary things, even with our eyes closed. Even if we're curled up in soft blankets with pillows tucked just right. There's something strong about saying, "Yeah, I know the scary part's coming, but I'm here anyway. And hey, I'm here with you too. So take a slow breath with me, in and out. Good. Because next, that door is going to creak open. The seals are going to weaken. The ancient hunger is going to wake up. And when it does, we'll be here together, ready to see what happens next. Ready to remember that no matter how old or powerful the darkness is, light doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to exist. And right now, in this sleepy little corner of the world, with both of us here together, it does. All right. That's enough ancient evil for this part of the night. You rest easy for now. The next chapter of this tale is on its way soon. We've only just begun. All right, sleepyheads. Let's keep drifting forward, deeper into this long, winding dream of a story. So, we talked about the before. About how that ancient evil was buried beneath the surface, sealed away like a nightmare stuffed in the back of your closet. But you know how it is with closets, right? You can lock the door, but sooner or later, something might find the key. That key was the Mushroom War. The world before the land of Oo, before the Candy Kingdoms, before the vampires, before everything we recognize from Finn and Jake's wild adventures, was our world. Ordinary cities, highways, neighborhoods. People living their lives, going to work, coming home, arguing about TV shows, eating breakfast on Sunday mornings. And then, everything changed. No one remembers exactly how it started. Was it greed? Was it politics? Was it just someone making one terrible decision at exactly the wrong moment? We don't know. That's the thing with apocalypses. They don't always come with neat labeled files explaining what went wrong. Sometimes they just happen. What we do know is this: the war escalated. Technology advanced too quickly for anyone to keep control. Bombs were built that shouldn't have been built. Weapons designed not just to defeat enemies, but to erase entire histories, to turn whole nations into radioactive memories. And somewhere in all that chaos, something else woke up. See, evil doesn't always need an invitation. Sometimes all it needs is a crack, a weakness, a moment where fear outweighs hope, where anger drowns out kindness. And that moment, that's when the Lich stirred. He wasn't born from the Mushroom War. Not exactly. He was already there, like rot deep in the foundation of a house. But the war, that was the hammer smashing through the floorboards, letting the rot spill out. I want you to picture it. The sky glowing red, not from sunset, but from mushroom clouds blooming in the distance. Cities cracking open like old porcelain. People running, but there's nowhere left to run to. The oceans boiling at the edges, the forests catching fire, not from nature, but from weapons too advanced for anyone to fully understand. And then, silence. Not the peaceful kind. The empty kind. The kind of silence where you don't even hear birds anymore. Just the wind carrying dust through empty streets. And in that silence, something was laughing. Not loud, not joyful. Just this slow, steady, poisonous laugh echoing out of cracked temples and shattered laboratories. That laugh was the Lich. This was his moment. His rise wasn't dramatic with fireworks or armies marching. It was quiet. A slow infection creeping outward from whatever dark corner he'd been sealed in, stretching his fingers into the broken bones of the earth. Where once he'd been sealed by ancient magic, now the world's own violence had cracked open the locks. He didn't even need to fight for it. Humanity did most of the work for him. And here's the part that always chills me, even now. The Lich didn't want power. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want treasure or kingdoms or respect. He wanted destruction. Pure, final, irreversible nothingness. No negotiating. No bargaining. Just the quiet, patient promise of the end. It's strange, isn't it? How often in stories, villains have these big, complicated motives. But not the Lich. His whole purpose is decay, like mold that doesn't stop growing until the walls fall down. And in the aftermath of that war, that's exactly what started to happen. The world didn't just break, it rotted. Buildings became skeletons of what they used to be. Rivers turned toxic. Whole cities crumbled like wet sand. And all the while, the Lich's influence spread like a whisper, curling through the cracks, finding the weak spots in everything that had once been strong. But here's the beautiful, weird thing about stories like this one. Even in all that horror, even with the world at its absolute lowest, life found a way to crawl back out. Not in the way we might expect. Not perfectly. Not beautifully. But in stubborn, strange little ways. Candy growing wild where nothing else would grow. Creatures mutating. Not all of them friendly, but many just trying to survive, just like us. Magic bleeding back into the world, not as a miracle, but as a weird, wild accident of broken physics. It's almost funny in a way. The very war that cracked the world also opened up possibility. New life, new kingdoms, new weirdness. But under it all, like a stain that wouldn't wash out, the Lich was there, watching, waiting, growing stronger, like a disease hiding behind the first signs of a fever. And somewhere out in those broken landscapes, the seeds of future heroes were being planted too. Not yet ready, not yet awake, but coming. And that's where we'll keep drifting next, together. So, there we are. A world broken by its own hand. Humanity, once towering with machines, satellites, and glittering cities, now reduced to scattered bones and scorched memories. The world itself was a scar, and the Lich, he was the infection festering inside it. But here's the thing about infections. They don't always just sit there. They spread. Slowly at first, then faster, until the fever burns everything down. And the Lich? He wasn't in a hurry. He knew he'd win. Time itself was his servant. Decay his crown, silence his language. Some say the Lich didn't even speak in those early days. Why would he? He wasn't trying to convince anyone. He wasn't building alliances or armies, not like those old warlords humans used to read about in history books. The Lich didn't need soldiers. He only needed entropy. His influence drifted across the wastelands like cold fog, curling into old military bunkers, laboratories full of forgotten science, temples built by people who thought they could outsmart death with rituals and symbols. And all those things, machines, magic, old world power, they were nothing to him. Useless tools. Toys left behind by a child who didn't know how to put them back in the box. Do you want to know how I imagined the rise of the Lich? Not with screaming or explosions. No, I see it like this. A cracked amusement park, vines curling over rusted roller coasters, the colorful paint peeling off cartoon characters no one remembered anymore. And in the distance, barely visible, a figure standing still, thin, tall, silent, wearing a smile that wasn't his, stretching too wide, too wrong. And when the wind blows, bones tumble by like dry leaves. That was the rise. Not with banners, not with announcements, just with absence. The kind of emptiness that creeps up on you before you even notice. But here's the twist I love about this story. Even though the world was falling apart, weirdness started to grow like mushrooms after rain. The candy people, for example, who even knows how they started? Maybe some ancient wizard bored out of his mind in a ruined bunker thought, what if gumdrops could talk? Maybe it was just a mutation from the magical fallout. No one really knows. But soon enough, these strange, bright little beings were wobbling across the ruined streets, building new societies out of candy canes and frosting, completely unaware that the ground beneath them used to be sidewalks and highways. And there were the mutants, the strange creatures with too many eyes, too many limbs, or skin that shimmered in colors not found on any old-world animal. Some of them were dangerous, sure, but some were just lost. And magic. Oh, magic exploded. Not neat, organized magic either. Not spells from books or tidy wands with stars on the tips. This was wild magic, unpredictable, like lightning trapped in a bottle that someone accidentally dropped on the floor. And yet, underneath it all, curling like roots under the floorboards, was him. The Lich's rise wasn't about being seen. It was about being inevitable. Even when people began to forget what had come before, even when new kingdoms began popping up, when silly wars over candy territories broke out, when songs were sung around campfires and new stories were written, all of it was still sitting on his grave. No one could really see it yet, but everything was cracking, slowly, quietly. And in those cracks, the Lich was smiling. But you know how stories go, don't you? Just when things seem hopeless, something unexpected happened. In the middle of all this strangeness, amid the broken bones of the past and the bright sugar castles of the future, heroes started being born. Not kings, not soldiers, just weird kids. Kids like Finn. Kids who didn't come from glory or prophecy. Kids who just wanted to help, to save, to explore, because that's what their hearts told them to do. And somewhere far away, even as the Lich's influence kept spreading, these little sparks of defiance were flickering to life, tiny, fragile, but not gone. I love that image, the ancient, unstoppable evil creeping across the ruins of a dead world, thinking he's already won, while somewhere, a little kid in a funny hat is learning how to swing a sword for the first time. The Lich didn't notice those sparks right away. Why would he? To him, life was just a stubborn cough before the fever finally takes over. But those sparks, well, you'll see. Before we get to Finn's part in all this, there's another story to tell first. A story buried even deeper, tangled up in kings, crowns, and the slow, creeping madness of forgotten men. Because before a hero rises, sometimes the world needs a warning of what's coming. And that warning came in the form of another soul, someone already lost. But let's hold that thought for just a bit longer. Let's stay here in this weird, broken dawn of a new age. The world's shattered. Magic's leaking out of every crack. Life's rebuilding itself like a strange patchwork quilt stitched by hands that don't quite remember what quilts are supposed to look like. And underneath it all, somewhere deep beneath the surface, curled like a spider in a hollow log, the Lich was whispering to himself. No one could hear it yet. But soon, they would. And while the Lich's presence grew like mold in the cracks of an ancient, crumbling temple, the world outside began to forget what had come before. The people who were left didn't remember the Mushroom War, not really. They didn't talk about radiation or bunkers or missiles with names like Heaven's Hammer or Atlas Redeemer. Those words were dust now, just broken syllables lost on the wind. Instead, new names started to appear. Silly ones, mostly. Places like the Candy Kingdom, Hot Dog Kingdom, the Fire Kingdom. Worlds built not on old memories, but on new mistakes. Life has this weird, wonderful habit of pretending everything's okay, even when it's very much not. But even as these new kingdoms were forming, little pieces of the old world were poking through the cracks. Somewhere deep underground, rusted bunkers held secrets that would twist the fate of this new world forever. Artifacts, relics, forgotten machines that still hummed quietly with ancient energy, unaware that the world they were built for had already turned to ash. And deep in those places, sometimes something woke up. One of the strangest and saddest things about the Lich's rise is that he wasn't born in a glorious flash of terror. He crept back like smoke leaking under a locked door. You probably heard of that old saying, evil triumphs when good men do nothing. But I'd say in the case of the Lich, evil triumphs when no one even remembers what good is supposed to look like anymore. That's what made him terrifying. The world was ripe for his return, not because people were wicked, but because they were tired, broken, forgetful. And the Lich, he's patient. But as we drift through this part of the story, I want you to imagine something with me. Close your eyes if you want. Picture an empty plain, flat, silent. All around are the remains of things that used to matter. Cracked statues, old rusted playgrounds, maybe even the twisted metal frames of things that used to be cars or buses. And standing there, alone, is a single skeleton. Bare bones, no skin, no muscle, no stories left. Just a silent witness to everything that used to be. Now picture something moving in that skeleton's chest cavity. Not a heart. No, that's long gone. But something glowing, faint, green, sickly. Like a star, but a star that doesn't give warmth. It only takes. That glow, that's him? The Lich doesn't scream. He doesn't roar. He glows quietly, hatefully. And wherever that glow touches, things stop being. No negotiation, no mercy, just cold, creeping death that leaves nothing but stillness behind. And the worst part, the Lich doesn't just kill bodies. He kills hope. He kills the idea of things getting better. That's why the new kingdoms didn't notice him right away. They were too busy rebuilding, playing pretend with frosting castles and candy guards. The Lich didn't have to rush. The world was already rotting from the inside out, and no one even realized they were living in the bones of the old world. But then something happened. Somewhere in the ruins of the ancient world, someone or something stumbled across a forgotten artifact. Not candy, not magic, but science. And that's where things started to shift. Because you can bury the past. But sometimes the past digs itself up. Hidden deep in the wreckage of those old bunkers were strange devices. One of them, a reactor of sorts, still pulsed faintly with unstable, ancient energy. Enough energy to wake something up. And from that place, the Lich stirred. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the simple hunger of decay meeting life again. Whatever it was, that slow, glowing hatred began to move through the world in more deliberate ways now. And then, the whispers started. At first, only the old mutants heard them. The ones who sat in caves and ruins, their bodies twisted by radiation and magic, their eyes clouded like old marbles. They heard voices telling them things no sane creature should know. Things about the end of all things, about purity through death, about stillness as the only truth. These whispers didn't sound angry. They sounded calm, polite almost. That's the worst part, isn't it? Evil that doesn't shout at you. Evil that whispers softly like an old friend, offering you peace, offering you release from pain, at the cost of everything. And slowly, those whispers reached farther. Out into the forests, into the ruined towns, into the strange new kingdoms where no one remembered the names of the rivers or mountains anymore. They drifted like ash on a cold wind, curling around doorways, seeping under windows, wrapping themselves around dreams at night. Not everyone heard them, of course, but enough did. And that was when the Lich started testing the world again. A ruin here, a corrupted tree there, a sudden, strange sickness in a village full of smiling candy citizens. It didn't make sense. It wasn't supposed to. It was just the first signs of him, stretching after a long nap. And somewhere, deep beneath it all, that faint green glow pulsed, one, twice, like a heartbeat not belonging to anything living anymore. The world thought it was recovering, rebuilding, restarting. But beneath that hopeful smile, the ground was soft. The walls were hollow, and the rot was waking up again. And soon that gentle whisper would turn into a voice that could speak. Before that voice could rise fully, something unexpected had to happen first. Someone, or something, had to find that voice. And that's exactly where we'll head next, sleepy traveler. Not just into the heart of the Lich's growing power, but into the stories of those who tried to stand against it, even when they didn't understand what they were facing yet. Not yet. But even with those whispers curling their way into the cracks of the world, not everyone gave in. That's a strange thing about people, and creatures, and kingdoms, and stories in general. Even in the darkest places, sometimes a spark appears. Not a bright one necessarily, not heroic, not powerful, just a tiny flicker of something. Hope, resistance, or maybe just stubbornness. And around the same time that the Lich's whispers were creeping through forgotten places, there were those who began to notice. Quiet ones, weird ones, not heroes, at least not yet, but people sensitive to that wrongness, like dogs growling before a storm. Some of these wanderers were mutants, others were travelers, strange beings who didn't fully belong anywhere. Some were wise, some were just lucky. But what they had in common was curiosity. And curiosity, oddly enough, is one of the few things that can cut through fear. It's not about being brave. It's about needing to know, even when knowing might ruin everything. Whispers or not, the Lich wasn't the only force stirring in this odd, half-forgotten world. Magic was still alive, bubbling up in strange places. The cosmic forces, those ancient powers woven into the bones of the universe itself, they were still watching. They didn't intervene, not yet. But their presence was like distant stars, unreachable, watching. And far from the ruins and the mutants and the forgotten bunkers, in a corner of this strange new earth, something else was happening entirely. Someone was being born. Someone who one day would stand in the Lich's way, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. But that's for later. For now, the Lich was still stretching, still unfolding, like a black flower blooming in reverse. And then, something important happened. In the tangled remains of the old world, there was a place, a forgotten research station, buried beneath mountains of glass and steel, where a well of pure, raw, magical energy had been accidentally created during the old war. A horrible, beautiful accident, the result of science and magic colliding when they were never meant to. The Lich felt it, drawn to it like rot to warm bread. His influence drifted toward that forgotten well, and with every inch of ground it covered, the plants withered, the air thickened, and the color itself seemed to drain away from the world. It was like watching the universe itself exhale, letting go of life with each step. And when the whispers reached that well of power, something incredible and terrible happened. For the first time in this strange new world, the Lich spoke. It wasn't words, not at first. It was more like a pressure, a hum in the bones, a coldness behind the eyes, a feeling that everything was about to break, quietly and completely. And the words that did form, they weren't threats, they were invitations. "Come to the stillness," the voice whispered. "There is peace in nothing, rest in the void." Can you imagine hearing that in the back of your mind while you sleep, while you walk, while you sit by yourself and try to remember what your family's voices sounded like? It's enough to break anyone. And it did break some. Mutants, travelers, even entire villages simply stopped. Stopped moving, stopped being. As if they simply gave up the game of existence altogether. And yet, others resisted. They didn't know why. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was love for silly things like candy or weird friends or strange little dogs who liked to sing songs about bacon pancakes. Resistance didn't come from armies. It came from weirdness, from unpredictability, from things that didn't make sense to a creature like the Lich. And unpredictability, that's where heroes come from. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. For now, as the whispers grew, as the Lich's sickly glow began to pulse beneath the ground, one thing was clear. The fall of the earth wasn't a single moment. It wasn't a big, dramatic explosion like you see in old cartoons or blockbuster movies. It was slow, it was quiet. The kind of destruction that happens while you're still brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. And the rise of the Lich? It wasn't about a throne or a crown. It was about absence. The absence of love. The absence of color. The absence of hope. That's what made him the Lich. He wasn't there to rule. He was there to end. But because stories are wonderful like that, there was still another thread, twisting softly through the gloom. Somewhere, quietly, life was making a different kind of whisper. Not loud enough yet to be called a voice, but a murmur, like wind through leaves, or like someone gently humming to themselves when they're nervous. That whisper would become resistance. And that, sleepy friends, is where we'll leave this part of the story for now. Not with everything fixed, not with everything broken, but right here, in that in-between place where endings are possible, but beginnings might still be hiding under the bed somewhere, waiting to jump out with messy hair and a slightly ridiculous outfit. We'll pick up from here soon, with strange new heroes, tangled fates, and a darkness that refuses to take no for an answer. But for now, close your eyes. Let the soft hum of ancient secrets drift past you like smoke curling through an open window. We've got more of this story to tell, and I'll be right here with you when you're ready for the next part. Sleep well, adventurer. The next chapter is just around the corner. Let's drift a little deeper now and into something closer to now, into a time after the wars, after the mushroom clouds, after the whispers that turn people's minds into empty rooms with broken windows. We're in Ooh now. It's strange to think about, isn't it? This colorful, magical, candy-coated place with weird creatures, musical hot dogs, and secret wizards. This world used to be our world. It's Earth. Or at least, it was Earth. And while most of the folks living in Ooh now don't really know or care about the ancient days of ruin and the whispering void, the truth is, the Lich never really left. And that's the thing about evil. It doesn't always storm the castle gates, kicking down doors with flaming swords. Sometimes it just waits, like a seed caught in the sole of your shoe. You don't notice it. Not at first, but it's there, and it's growing. And in Ooh, the Lich's influence is exactly like that, a quiet infection in a loud, colorful world. You might be wondering, how does something so dark stay hidden in a place full of laughing penguins and candy people? Shouldn't it stick out like a skeleton at a birthday party? The truth is, it does stick out to the ones paying attention. But most of Ooh, they've forgotten what evil really feels like. After so many centuries of magic, mutations, and mischief, the true weight of the Lich's emptiness doesn't make sense anymore. It's like trying to explain loneliness to someone who's never been hugged. But for those few who do feel it, that shiver when the sky turns a weird color or when the air gets just a little too still, they know. Somewhere out there, something ancient is still smiling with no lips, waiting for the moment to breathe again. Let's talk about how that influence shows up. First, the land itself carries scars. There are places in Ooh quiet, broken places, where the grass doesn't grow right, where the wind sounds like someone whispering secrets you don't want to hear. The ground hums faintly if you press your ear to it, like the earth itself is muttering forgotten names under its breath. People avoid those places, even the bravest ones, not because of monsters or traps, but because of that feeling, that ancient wrongness. One of the most chilling places, the Well of Power. You've heard of it already. The place where the Lich first spoke, deep underground, far from the giggling streets of the Candy Kingdom, or the wild songs of Magic Man's weird pranks. It's still there. Not sealed exactly, just forgotten. And sometimes when the moon is right, that faint green glow seeps up through cracks in the stones, like a wound that never properly healed. But it's not just the land that remembers. Magic remembers. There are ancient wizards in Ooh who don't come out of the towers anymore. Not because they're old, not because they're busy, but because they've seen something, or felt it. Maybe they saw the way the threads of magic fray in certain places, or how a spell that should sparkle with warmth sometimes flickers cold instead. They don't talk about it. Wizards are like that. They keep their secrets locked up like dusty books on high shelves. But the fear is there, sitting behind their eyes like a chair nobody wants to sit in. And then there's the influence on people. The Lich doesn't need armies. He doesn't recruit generals or raise banners. His influence is more like an infection. Sometimes a person will just change, a nice person, a funny person, suddenly starting to say strange things. They'll talk about the quiet a little too often. They'll stare at a campfire like they're waiting for it to die. It's subtle, but for those who know what to look for, it's unmistakable. And sometimes those people vanish. No one knows where they go. It's as if they finally listened too closely to that whisper in the back of their head and followed it into the trees or down into forgotten caves or through cracks in the ground where nobody should fit. Gone. Just gone. But like I said before, Ooh is a weird place, and weirdness is resistance. That's why you'll find little pockets of rebellion against this ancient emptiness. Not in big, heroic armies, but in things like silly songs, weird hats, or a magical dog playing the viola in a treehouse. That kind of weirdness, it doesn't make sense to the Lich. And what evil can't understand, it can't fully control. But don't get me wrong, the Lich is still here, still breathing, faintly, through the cracks of forgotten temples, still whispering into the dreams of wandering adventurers who camp too close to the old wells. And soon, his influence is going to start moving again, faster, louder. And that's where some very familiar faces come into the picture. But we'll get there soon. For now, just remember this. In the bright, playful world of Ooh, not everything is what it seems. And while some folks are busy singing about bacon pancakes or battling tiny, ridiculous villains, somewhere far away in a place the maps don't cover, something ancient is smiling patiently in the dark, waiting. Now, let's drift a little further. We've talked about the places where the Lich's influence lingers like old dust on forgotten shelves. We've talked about the way magic feels strange near certain cracks in the earth. But there's another way his presence shows up in Ooh, through dreams. It's not just ancient wizards or unlucky travelers who feel the touch of the Lich. It's dreamers, kids, adventurers, even heroes. Sometimes the Lich doesn't have to whisper through caves or old wells. Sometimes he comes to people when they sleep, pressing thoughts into the soft fabric of their dreams, not like words exactly, more like feelings. You ever have a dream where you're falling, but you don't know from where? Or a dream where you're standing in your childhood home, but everything's slightly wrong. The angles are sharper, the shadows are deeper, the silence is louder. That's what the Lich does. He doesn't speak. He suggests. He nudges. He shows people places that shouldn't exist, or moments in their life twisted, just slightly out of shape, like a smile that's a little too wide to be real. For some, those dreams pass. For others, the feeling stays. That's part of the reason why adventurers in Ooh are the way they are. They're brave, sure, but they're also weird. Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, they all carry that weirdness like armor. They tell silly jokes, or make songs about nothing, or invent wild projects that don't always work. It's not just fun, it's protection. Distraction is resistance. Because the moment you sit too still, the moment your mind wanders into quiet places, that's when the Lich might knock at the door of your thoughts. And you know who else feels it deep down? The animals. Not all of them, of course, but the smart ones, the ancient ones. There are creatures in Oo who have been around since before the bombs, before the Candy Kingdom was built, before the world forgot its real name. They're quiet, watchful, usually hiding far away from the chaos of kingdoms and wars. They know what's stirring beneath the soil. They hear the quiet singing in the bones of the mountains. You ever wonder why you'll see some creatures run before a disaster happens? Why birds suddenly flee from certain forests for no obvious reason? They know. They're not running from the moment. They're running from what's coming. And yet, despite all of this looming dread, life in Oo keeps rolling on like a colorful parade of nonsense. Finn goes on quests. Jake takes naps. Princess Bubblegum invents something weird that accidentally explodes. Ice King writes terrible songs about penguins. Why? Because life, even in the face of old evil, is stubborn. It's like a dandelion growing between cracks in the sidewalk of an abandoned city. No one asked it to grow there. It doesn't really make sense. And yet, it's there. Bright yellow, defiant, alive. And that's what the Lich doesn't understand. For all his ancient, endless hunger, for all his whispered promises of stillness and peace, he doesn't get joy. He doesn't understand silliness. He doesn't understand the warm weirdness of making art that no one else might ever see. To the Lich, existence is pointless unless it's perfectly still. And that's why, over all this time, he's never managed to swallow the world completely. The heroes of Oo don't fight him just with swords and spells. They fight him with laughter, with friendship, with songs about nonsense, with ridiculous dance moves at exactly the wrong moment. That kind of thing confuses ancient evil. It's like trying to explain why toast tastes better with butter to a rock. The Lich can feel the resistance, but he doesn't get it. And that, sleepyheads, is the strange hope hidden in all of this darkness. As long as there are people willing to tell weird jokes, or wear hats shaped like animals, or build towers out of junk, just to see if it'll stay standing, the Lich doesn't win. But don't get too cozy just yet. Because while weirdness and laughter keep the darkness at bay, the Lich is patient. Patient in ways that people can't even imagine. He's willing to wait while generations rise and fall, while kingdoms crumble into dust, while rivers change course. And now, something's shifting. Somewhere deep under the ground, that old green glow is starting to pulse again, slowly, faintly, like the heartbeat of a creature that's been asleep for too long. Soon that heartbeat's going to get louder. And it's going to call to someone. But I'll tell you about him in just a bit. For now, let's drift with that thought. A world of color, silliness, and songs, standing right on top of an ancient, sleeping darkness. One laughing, one whispering, both waiting. All right, sleepyheads, let's wander even deeper now. You remember that green glow I just mentioned? That faint heartbeat thrumming somewhere deep under the skin of the world. Let's follow that for a while. Because somewhere out there, moving through the tangled trails of the Candy Kingdom, or drifting across the shattered remnants of old cities, are people who hear that pulse, even if they don't fully understand it. Some of them are magicians, half-mad wizards wearing cloaks stitched together from dreams and broken promises. Some are wanderers with nothing to lose, following strange omens like birds flying in the wrong direction, or the way puddles ripple when there's no wind at all. And some are just unlucky. The thing about the Lich's influence is that it doesn't always announce itself with giant, terrifying monsters stomping through castles. Sometimes it shows up in tiny ways, subtle ways, things you wouldn't notice unless you were already looking for them. Like the way a cheerful song you've known your whole life suddenly feels off. You can't quite say why, but it sounds like someone's humming along, a beat behind, just enough to make your skin prickle. Or the way certain doors in forgotten buildings refuse to open, no matter how hard you pull, as if something on the other side is holding the knob with quiet, careful fingers. That's the thing with evil like the Lich. It prefers small cracks. Big battles come later. First, it worms into the corners of your mind, the little places where your confidence stutters, or where you're almost, but not quite certain of yourself. And when you live in a world like where weirdness is normal, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a fun, strange mystery and something that's wrong. Remember when Finn and Jake started noticing that wells were bubbling green, or that old ruins were giving off tiny electric whispers? Those weren't accidents. Those were signs. But let's get specific for a minute. Do you remember Billy? Finn's old hero, the greatest warrior had seen in a long, long time. Even he wasn't safe. See, the Lich didn't fight Billy directly. That's not how it works. Instead, he used him. Twisted his memories, hollowed him out like a log chewed up by termites, until what was left was only the shape of a hero, not the heart. And what did the Lich do with that shape? He wore it like a costume. That's how the Lich operates. No loud entrances, no giant flaming skulls charging across battlefields, just slow, careful steps. One mind, one dream, one cracked belief at a time. The Lich loves hope. Not because he wants it, but because he wants to break it. Taking a hero like Billy and turning him into a puppet, that wasn't just a tactic, it was a message. It was the Lich whispering to the world, even your brightest lights can be snuffed out. But that's the funny thing about light, isn't it? You can blow out a candle, but it doesn't mean the sun's going anywhere. And the heroes of they're not just individuals, they're a network. A weird, wobbly, mistake-filled, glorious network of friendships and oddball connections. It's not just Finn swinging swords or bubblegum building gadgets, it's everyone. Marceline with her music, Jake with his lazy but surprising wisdom. Even Ice King, chaotic and clueless as he might be, somehow finds ways to matter in moments that shouldn't make sense, but do. So even as the Lich wore Billy's face, thinking he'd broken something essential in the heart of the world, that spark of resistance kept glowing elsewhere. Unexpected places, unexpected people. That's the Lich's greatest weakness. He underestimates nonsense. But don't mistake that weakness for defeat, because the Lich learns. Slowly, carefully, he watches. He adapts. And in more recent days, the Lich's influence has been starting to feel different. Like it's testing new approaches. Maybe it realized that brute force wasn't going to win against this colorful, chaotic world. Maybe now it's playing a longer game, using whispers instead of war cries, suggestions instead of commands. And who's most vulnerable to that? It's not always the villains. Villains are noisy, loud, messy. No, the ones who might fall under the Lich's influence now are the ones who doubt themselves the most. The quiet ones, the lonely ones, the people who look up at the stars at night and wonder if they really matter in the grand, tangled mess of To someone like that, the Lich's whisper might not sound scary at all. It might sound kind, a promise of peace, of stillness, of letting go of all the mistakes, all the confusion, all the weirdness that life throws your way every single day. Just stillness. But you and I both know that kind of peace is a lie. It's like falling asleep in a freezing room and thinking the cold feels cozy at first, until it takes your warmth, your breath, and finally your heartbeat. And yet, that lie is tempting, especially in a world full of chaos, mistakes, and heartbreak. That's why the heroes keep going, not because they don't feel that pull, but because they do, and they choose to resist anyway. It's not always noble. Sometimes it's stubborn. Sometimes it's petty. Sometimes it's just because they don't want to see their friend sad. And that's the real secret of Ooh. Not just that adventure continues, but that even the smallest acts of weird kindness are little rebellions against the ancient hunger waiting underneath it all. And now, sleepyheads, we've followed the trail of whispers, traced the echoes of green flame, and watched how the Lich's shadow slides across the waking world like a stain on glass. But before we drift to the next part of the story, let's sit with one more thought together, right here in the quiet. I want you to think about choice for a second. Not the big, heroic choices like leaping into battle or throwing a sword at the bad guy. I mean the small ones. The choice to get out of bed when you don't feel like it. The choice to help a friend, even when you're annoyed with them. The choice to hope when everything in you says not to bother. That's where the Lich's influence creeps in. Not in fireworks and destruction, but in that space between action and inaction. Between I could and why should I bother? And that's why Ooh is so special. Not because its people always get things right, but because they try, even when trying feels ridiculous. Even the Ice King, with all his weirdness and memory loss, ends up helping at crucial moments. Not because he's a great strategist, but because somewhere deep inside his frozen, scrambled mind, he remembers what it's like to love people, even if he doesn't always remember why. And Bubblegum? For all her mistakes, all her schemes and over-control, even she knows the Lich can't be fought by brains alone. That's why she leans on people like Finn, Jake, and Marceline, even when she's too proud to say it out loud. It's messy. The whole thing is gloriously, chaotically messy. And the Lich hates that. He wants a clean ending, a nice, neat period at the end of the sentence. Silence, stillness, nothing left to say. But the people of Ooh, they keep talking, they keep laughing. They keep messing up and getting embarrassed and trying again anyway. That's how you beat something ancient and cold. Not by being perfect, but by being persistent. Now, I know what you might be wondering. Where's the Lich now? After all these battles, these escapes, these near victories, where is that whispering evil? Well, that's the thing about beings like the Lich. You can bury them under mountains. You can trap them in ancient gems. You can even throw them into the heart of a star. But hunger doesn't need a body. It waits. It finds cracks. And sometimes it doesn't come roaring back. It comes as a thought, a doubt, a strange dream you wake up from feeling uneasy. He's out there somewhere. But the heroes are out there too. And they're not alone. Because the thing the Lich never seems to fully understand is that you don't need to be a sword-swinging warrior to stand against darkness. Sometimes just living your weird, funny, imperfect little life is resistance enough. The next time you hear a whisper that tells you to give up, remember Finn's stubborn grin. Remember Jake's sleepy wisdom. Remember Marceline's guitar. Remember Bubblegum's overplanned schemes turning into chaotic rescues. And remember, you are part of that story too. Even now as you drift here with me, listening gently while the world softens around you, you're part of the same fight. A quiet rebellion against giving in to silence. A choice to stay. All right, breathe deep for a second. Feel your shoulders relax. Let that soft weight of your blanket or your pillow cradle you for a while. We got more story to tell. This journey isn't over yet. Next, we're going to wander into darker places, even deeper into the heart of this tale, as we uncover the Lich's darkest plan. But for now, let's just stay here for a little while longer, breathing softly, letting go of the noise of the day. The Lich may whisper in corners, but we'll whisper right back, with life, with laughter, with one more story before sleep fully carries you away. All right, ready? Let's keep going together. Hey there, sleepyheads. You're doing amazing. We've walked through shadows, through the rise of the Lich, through Ooh's strange resistance. But now we're going to step into something even bigger. It's time to go beyond Ooh. It's time for the multiverse. Yep, blankets up, breath steady, because this part of the story isn't just about one world. It's about all of them. See, in the land of Ooh, things are already strange and magical. Candy people, elemental princesses, ancient wizards, talking animals. It's already the kind of place you might only find in dreams. But behind that world, like a second layer of paint under the first coat, there's more. So much more. And at the center of this strange, branching reality sits the Lich, or at least the idea of him. Let's rewind a bit. Remember Prismo, that relaxed, cosmic, wish-granting being who lives outside of time in his cozy, pillow-filled room. Prismo's chamber is like a cosmic living room hanging outside the known universe. Through his windows, you can glimpse the swirling tides of reality itself, the way one world bends into another, and how choices ripple outward to create new timelines, new possibilities, new lives. And with it, his world begins to spiral. See, the crown isn't just magical headwear. It's a prison, a relic, a trap that grants immense ice powers in exchange for sanity. And when a farm world Finn puts it on, you can almost hear the whisper of the multiverse shift. Why does that matter to the Lich? Because chaos opens doors. And through those doors, the Lich creeps like a draft in an old house, sliding into spaces where he doesn't belong, curling around lives like smoke under a door. And Farmworld isn't the only one. The multiverse is full of cracks, of alternate realities shaped by choices big and small. A version of Ooh where Simon never finds the crown, another where Marceline never meets him, another where the Mushroom War never happens at all. And through all of them, that cold hunger waits, watching, reaching. Because to the Lich, a single world isn't enough. He doesn't just want Ooh. He doesn't even just want this universe. He wants all of it, every timeline, every possibility, every fragile version of people we know and love, extinguished one by one until nothing remains but the sound of his breath, a sound like wind blowing through dead trees. But here's where it gets interesting, sleepyheads, because it's not just the Lich moving through the multiverse. It's Finn, too. Multiple versions of him across countless realities, standing like little flames against the dark, some of them broken, some of them brave, some of them still figuring it out, one awkward smile at a time. And the funny thing about flames, even the smallest candle can hold back a room full of darkness. Do you remember Jake the dog's wise words? Dude, sucking at something is the first step to being sorta good at something. That applies here more than ever. The Lich, ancient, perfect in his emptiness, all-knowing in his hatred. Finn, messy, clumsy, unsure, but still standing. In every universe. That's the wild beauty of the multiverse. Not that there's infinite destruction, but that there's infinite chances to get it right. Now I want you to imagine this with me, softly, gently. Picture standing on a mountaintop at night, stars overhead stretching in every direction, swirling like soft, white streams across velvet black. And between those stars, doorways, windows, threads of light leading to other places, other people, other yous. Somewhere out there is a version of you who already beat the hard thing you're going through. Somewhere out there is a version of you still struggling, still learning, still fighting. And somewhere, there's a version of you who's just lying back under the stars, smiling, ready for whatever comes next. The multiverse is vast, but you are part of it. And the Lich, he's going to have to deal with that. But the journey isn't over yet. In fact, it's about to get stranger, deeper, more tangled than ever before. And together, we're going to keep drifting gently through these worlds, exploring one thread at a time. All right, take a soft breath. Let your muscles relax. Feel your eyelids heavier, not because of exhaustion, but because your mind is cradling the weight of wonder. We've only just begun this part of the adventure. Ready to keep going? Let's drift further into the weave of the multiverse, together. As we drift deeper, sleepyheads, let's follow one of those threads more closely. Farm World. Farm World is important because it shows us something the Lich rarely accounts for, that even in the most broken, worn-down version of reality, people still fight back. Now remember how it started? It wasn't just an accident that Farm World Finn ended up with the crown. It was the Lich's plan all along. The Lich manipulated events across universes, whispering and guiding until the right set of mistakes was made. And that's when the crown came into play, freezing the world in endless winter, and corrupting Finn's very soul with power he couldn't understand. But that wasn't the end. Finn's will, his stubborn, reckless heart, fought against that darkness. Even warped by the crown's madness, some tiny spark of him resisted. And it wasn't just him. His family, his friends, even people who had no idea who he really was, all of them, in some small way, stood against the slow rot creeping through their world. Isn't that strange when you think about it? The Lich always counts on fear winning the day. Fear of the unknown. Fear of pain. Fear of failure. And yet, over and over again, little people with no reason to hope find it in themselves to hope anyway. Now drift with me sideways out of Farm World, across the flowing rivers of reality, until we land somewhere else entirely. The Time Room. This is Prismo's domain. Cozy, dim, peaceful. Prismo's not a warrior. He's not a king or a sorcerer. He's just a dude who happens to have the job of watching over everything. And in his strange, soft-spoken way, he reminds us that sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones with weapons. They're the ones with perspective. Prismo understands something the Lich doesn't. That even when things seem lost, the story's never really over. That's why Prismo loves people like Finn. Not because Finn always makes the right choices, he doesn't. But because Finn tries, even when everything's against him. And it's not just Prismo. There's the cosmic owl, whose dreams warn of futures yet to come. There's the catalyst comet, a being of pure cosmic force that sometimes reincarnates into forms like Finn. Even the strange, shifting, alternate universes watched over by the godlike Golb have their roles to play. The multiverse is alive, buzzing, infinite, strange. And yet, here's the thing that makes it beautiful. It's not perfect. Some timelines fail, some fall to ruin, some heroes don't make it. But others, they shine. Bright as bonfires on dark beaches, flickering, yes, but stubborn, unwilling to go out. And as we drift through these strange branches of reality, sleepyheads, I want you to think about something soft, gentle, and true. Every version of you that's ever stumbled. Every version of you that's ever thought, I can't do this anymore, is standing right next to a version of you that keeps going anyway. Finn, Jake, Marceline, even Simon, even Bubblegum. They all make mistakes. They all fall short. But they get up. And that's what the multiverse loves most. Not perfection, but persistence. That's the real reason the Lich can't fully win. Not because the good guys are stronger, but because they're stubborn. And that's the lesson we carry with us right now under these blankets, with sleepy breaths and soft hearts. The multiverse may be infinite, but so is hope. Even when the Lich's green flame flickers at the edges of reality, there's always someone standing between him and the end of all things. Sometimes it's a warrior. Sometimes it's a dog with stretchy powers. Sometimes it's a vampire queen with a bass guitar. And sometimes it's you. Just by being here, by choosing to stay soft when things feel hard, by listening, by dreaming. We'll keep walking together, sleepyheads, step by step through this tangled web of infinite worlds. And we haven't even reached the strangest part yet. All right? Breathe with me again. In through the nose, out through the mouth, nice and slow. Feel the gentle weight of gravity holding you safe. The multiverse can wait another moment. Next, we're going to see what happens when all these realities start to crash into each other. But for now, let's just float here for a little while longer. All right, sleepyheads, let's keep drifting together. We were floating there in that quiet between worlds where the stars hum like distant lullabies. But beyond that soft glow, something stirs, something bigger, something heavier. It's the weight of infinite choices all pressing in at once. Because the multiverse isn't just a map of what could be, it's a living thing. Imagine a trio, not just with branches, but with each leaf containing its own world, gently swaying in a cosmic breeze. Now picture a sickness spreading through those leaves, one by one curling in on themselves, turning brittle, dark, empty. That's the Lich's influence across the multiverse. And yet, for all his cleverness, for all the power behind his cold, burning gaze, he doesn't fully understand the thing he's trying to destroy. Because, you see, life isn't neat. It isn't ordered. It's messy, like a garden run wild. Flowers growing through cracks in the sidewalk, vines curling over rusty fences. The Lich wants order through emptiness. But life thrives in chaos. One of the strangest examples of this is the Citadel. Remember the Citadel? It's this ancient cosmic prison floating far outside the normal timelines. Not just for criminals, but for being so dangerous, so reality-breaking, that they had to be sealed away just to stop the multiverse from tearing itself apart. And guess who's connected to that? Finn's father, Martin Mertens, a selfish, slippery man. Not the noble dad Finn always dreamed of, but someone flawed, scared, and constantly running from responsibility. It's another reminder that family isn't always perfect. Sometimes the people we love let us down, badly. But here's the twist. While Martin's failures echo outward like ripples in a pond, Finn's response matters more. He doesn't let bitterness define him. Even with all that pain, he keeps going. That's why he's the hero, even when he doesn't feel like one. Now, why am I telling you this in the middle of the multiverse? Because the Citadel itself is proof of something important. Sometimes even the guardians of order don't fully understand the chaos they're supposed to contain. And as the Lich makes his moves, as his cold hunger snakes its way through timelines, we see something weird happening. The boundaries between universes start to crack. What used to be distant alternate realities begin bleeding into one another. Characters from one world flicker into view in another. Decisions made by one version of Finn echo like thunder across entirely separate worlds. It's like a hallway of mirrors, each reflection slightly different. But suddenly, the glass between them starts to shimmer, ripple, and thin. And through it all, the Lich keeps whispering, "Fall, fall, fall." But do you know what's even louder? Laughter. The wild, ridiculous laughter of someone like Jake the dog, stretching his body into silly shapes just to make his best friend smile. Or Marceline's low chuckle as she plays some weird song on her bass guitar about meatballs or space or who knows what else. That's what the Lich can't kill. The randomness of friendship, the absurdity of love, the unpredictable chaos of joy. It's like trying to draw a perfect shape in the sand during a hurricane. The Lich's hatred may be sharp, but life's weirdness is relentless. And as all of this swirls together, timelines bleeding, realities shivering, laughter ringing out even in dark corners, we realize something comforting. Even in infinity, we're not alone. Finn's out there somewhere, making some ridiculous mistake and laughing about it later. Jake's probably eating too many sandwiches at once. Marceline's probably writing another song that sounds terrible at first, but secretly makes you cry when you hear the lyrics. And us? Right here, cozy in our blankets, drifting in the glow of it all, breathing together. The Lich doesn't stand a chance against that. And sleepyheads, this isn't even the end of the journey. Next, we'll drift into the moment where all these broken reflections start to collide. And trust me, that's where things get really interesting. But for now, breathe easy. You're part of this messy, beautiful, ridiculous tangle of life, too. All right. Ready to drift further? Let's go together. Now. As we keep floating forward through this dreamy stretch of the multiverse, the really strange thing begins to happen. The cracks between worlds start becoming doors. Not just random glimpses anymore, but actual pathways. Imagine reality, like a shattered mirror, each shard showing a slightly different you, a slightly different world. But now, those shards start sliding back together, not neatly, but awkwardly, chaotically. Sharp edges pressing against soft ones, mismatches everywhere. And standing right at the heart of this growing, rippling collision of timelines is Finn. But not just the Finn we know, all the Finns. Farm World Finn, Shoko Finn, older Finn, young Finn, future Finn. All of them. Reflections in this cosmic mess, overlapping for just brief flashes. And behind it all, the whisper of the Lich. His voice doesn't yell. It doesn't scream. It's a cold suggestion, curling into the ears of every living thing, offering one idea. It's easier if you stop, let it all in. But that's when something incredible happens. Because in one of these universes, one thread in the wild mess of timelines, a single spark catches fire. It's Shermie and Beth's world. Far in the future, long after Finn and Jake's story, a scrappy cat and a wild pup, exploring what's left of the world, their hearts full of curiosity and fun. They don't know about the Lich. Not really, they don't carry the weight of old prophecies or ancient magic. But they exist, and they're happy. And that is what the multiverse throws back at the Lich like a slap in the face. Life keeps going. Even when one story ends, another begins. Even when something ancient and evil tries to pull everything down into silence, somewhere someone's laughing again. Somewhere someone's building something new, planting a weird little garden, making a dumb joke, writing a love song on a broken guitar. And when Finn, standing in the middle of all these universes colliding, sees all this, he realizes something important. The multiverse doesn't need to be saved by one hero. It saves itself every day in small, ridiculous, beautiful ways. And that realization is stronger than the whisper of destruction. It's like waking up from a bad dream and realizing the sun's coming through the window after all. Even better, Finn's not alone in that realization. Marceline's voice carries across timelines like a melody drifting through cracked doors. Bubblegum's careful plans echo like blueprints being drawn on infinite scraps of paper across dimensions. Even Simon, broken, tired Simon, has moments where his love, his real, complicated, messy love, cuts through the fog of madness, creating ripples of hope where there should have only been silence. And so, as these broken shards of reality start pressing together, with the Lich curling like a shadow behind the scenes, there's something stronger rising to meet him. Life. Imperfect. Stubborn. Loud, quiet, messy, beautiful. That's the lesson of the multiverse. Sleepyheads. That no matter how dark something might get, somewhere, somehow, something new is starting. Something small, something funny, something hopeful. And that's enough. So as we close this part of our journey, take a slow, steady breath with me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let that breath carry the weight of infinite possibilities. Next, we're going to drift into the final battle. The moment where the stories, the universes, the echoes of past mistakes and future hopes crash together in one beautiful, impossible moment. But for now, you've done enough. You've traveled across worlds with me. You've held your heart steady through storms of timelines. You deserve this rest. So let's settle in. One more deep breath and drift gently onward, together. I'm here with you. And the story's not over yet. All right, sleepyheads. Still with me? Let's take another soft, deep breath together. In and out. Good. We've drifted across collapsing universes, witnessed echoes of timelines, and felt the strange, wild pulse of the multiverse under our fingertips. But now, we come to one of the weirdest and most beautiful twists in this whole tale of darkness. Because sometimes, evil doesn't stay evil. Sometimes, something broken grows into something good. And that's where Sweet Pea comes in. Do you remember when we first met Sweet Pea? It's strange to think that this sweet, gentle toddler, this soft, round, glowing little being, used to be the Lich. Yeah, the Lich. The creature of endless death. The whisper of annihilation. The thing that wanted to erase existence itself. Reborn. As a baby. But not just any baby. A child full of innocence. A blank slate. A new beginning. And it didn't happen by accident. No. It happened because of a choice. A choice made by Prismo, the Wishmaster. You remember Prismo, right? A laid-back cosmic being who basically exists in a room full of glowing pink light, lounging on his couch, offering wishes to whoever finds him. He's not some terrifying god of the multiverse. He's more like that one friend who always brings good snacks to a late-night hangout. But behind Prismo's chill vibe is serious power. When Finn made a wish to undo the Lich's existence, it twisted reality itself. Suddenly, the Lich wasn't the creeping death anymore. He was Sweet Pea, a child born of contradiction. Imagine that. The pure essence of death reborn as the pure essence of life. But here's the tricky part. Just because something is reborn doesn't mean it's entirely free of the past. That's the haunting thing about Sweet Pea's story. Even though he's just a toddler, even though his voice is soft and his words innocent, there's something deep inside him. A memory, a hunger, a whisper of what used to be. And that whisper doesn't just stay silent. There are moments when it rises, when Sweet Pea's eyes flash with that eerie green glow, when his gentle, bubbly voice drops into that deep, terrible growl, when the world around him shivers, not with cold, but with possibility. It's like standing next to a sleeping volcano, quiet, beautiful even. But deep down, there's magma waiting to rise. And honestly, that's kind of terrifying. Because what does that mean for Sweet Pea? Is he free of the Lich? Or is he just a disguise? Is he an innocent child? Or a prison for the most dangerous evil the multiverse has ever known? It's a question that lingers around his every step. And it makes you wonder, can true innocence exist if it's born from corruption? Can something be fully good if it came from something fully evil? But here's the part that makes this story beautiful. Sweet Pea isn't alone, because standing beside him, protecting him, teaching him, loving him, is Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. Remember Tree Trunks? That tiny, adorable elephant with the softest voice you've ever heard. She bakes apple pies and talks about adventure in that way that makes you want to curl up under a quilt and sip something warm. And Mr. Pig, her loving, awkward, supportive husband, he's just good. Not perfect, not fancy, but good. And they choose to love Sweet Pea, not because they don't know what he is, but because they do. They see the glow in his eyes. They hear the whispers. They feel the weight of what might be hiding inside him, but they love him anyway. They don't run from the risk. They don't cage him up. They just believe. And sleepyheads, that's not just cute storytelling, that's powerful. Because it's saying that sometimes the best way to defeat evil isn't with swords or magic or battles. It's with care, with patience, with bedtime stories and warm pie, and people who sit next to you even when you're at your most frightening. It's saying that sometimes the scariest, most broken parts of us can heal if someone's willing to sit with us through it. But of course, life's never that simple. Because the whisper inside Sweet Pea isn't done yet. And soon, that darkness is going to wake up. And that whisper, oh, it's patient. It waits, it watches, like a long-forgotten echo trapped in the back of a cavern. No one hears it clearly, but it's there, growing stronger, bit by bit, every time Sweet Pea feels fear, every time he doubts himself, every time he doesn't understand why the world looks at him funny, or why grown-ups suddenly get tense around him for no clear reason. And you know what makes this even more haunting? Sweet Pea doesn't know why it's there. To him, it's just a weird, scary feeling, like a bad dream you can't remember when you wake up. But the fear stays with you all day. He's not like the other kids in the Candy Kingdom. He's different, and kids feel that kind of thing, don't they? Even if no one says it out loud. One day, that whisper takes shape. Not through Sweet Pea himself, but through the arrival of an old enemy, the King of Ooh. The king of Ooh isn't dangerous in the same way the Lich is. He's not some ancient cosmic being. He's just a con man. But sometimes, it's not the big cosmic threats that push you over the edge. It's the small, manipulative voices dressed up in kindness, dripping with lies. And the king of Ooh, well, he loves an opportunity. He sees Sweet Pea not as a child, but as a tool. A power waiting to be controlled. A story to sell. To gain followers, to gather influence. And slowly, he starts planting those seeds of doubt. Not directly at first. More like, little questions. Tiny pokes. Sweet Pea. Don't you ever wonder why you feel so strange sometimes? Do you think your parents are telling you everything? Wouldn't it be nice to be stronger? To have control? See, that's how corruption usually works. It doesn't show up screaming about doom. It shows up gently. It makes itself sound helpful, reasonable. And poor Sweet Pea, confused and curious, doesn't have the experience yet to fight off that kind of manipulation. But here's the thing about manipulation. It can never fully win as long as love is in the room. Because while the king of Ooh whispers from one side, guess who's still there on the other side? Tree trunks. And she's not fighting with swords or spells or dramatic speeches. She's fighting with something way stronger. Steady, unconditional love. Now don't you listen to that silly talk, Sweet Pea, she says in that soft, buttery voice of hers. You're perfect, just as you are. Even when you feel funny inside, even when you're scared. You're our boy, and no old fool with shiny robes can tell you who you are. And sleepyheads, doesn't that just feel like the safest place you could ever be? Sitting under a warm quilt with someone gently telling you, you're enough. But despite that love, the whisper is still there. Because you can love someone and still feel afraid of yourself. You can be surrounded by kindness and still hear the echo of old darkness in your bones. And the true heartbreak of Sweet Pea's story is that he's just a child having to carry this impossible burden. He didn't choose to be the Lich. He didn't ask for this story. And yet here he is, learning how to stand with one foot in the light and the other in the memory of destruction. It's not fair, it's not right, and yet it's real. And that's what makes Sweet Pea's journey one of the most complicated and beautifully sad parts of the Adventure Time universe. But here's the truth that keeps shining through. No matter how many dark whispers try to creep in, Sweet Pea is trying to be good, trying to understand, trying to grow into something better than what he was born from. And sleepyheads, isn't that all any of us can do? No matter where we come from, no matter what shadows might whisper to us in the back of our minds, all we can do is try to keep walking, to accept the love that's offered, to stay curious even when it's scary. That's what makes Sweet Pea more powerful than the Lich could ever understand. Not because of magic, but because of hope. And soon, that hope is going to be tested like never before. The whisper, it's about to wake up. And somewhere deep in Sweet Pea's dreams, that whisper begins to form words. Not clear words, not yet. More like feelings, heavy ones. The kind of feelings that settle in your stomach late at night when you're lying in bed and the world's quiet, but your mind won't stop running. For Sweet Pea, those feelings swirl around a single, terrible thought. What if I'm not supposed to be here? What if this world, this loving home, these warm apple pies, don't belong to me? And honestly, sleepyheads, that's a feeling a lot of people know. Maybe you've felt it too now and then, like you don't quite fit, like you're pretending to be someone you're not, even if you don't know why. But with Sweet Pea, that feeling is bigger, louder. It's not just awkwardness or growing pains, it's existential. He doesn't know yet that it's the ghost of the Lich whispering to him from somewhere deep, deep down. But something inside him does know. And the multiverse? Oh, it feels that disturbance. That's when the cosmic ripples start to happen. Little flashes of green light appearing randomly across strange dead winds blowing through the Candy Kingdom at night, and people noticing in passing that when Sweet Pea walks by, shadows lean just slightly toward him. It's subtle at first. Background noise, something you'd forget by breakfast. But then, things escalate. One night under a full moon, Sweet Pea has a dream. In that dream, he's standing in a dark forest. The trees are twisted, like they're made of old bones, and in the distance, he sees something, a shape, tall, thin, draped in a cloak of shadows, no face, just a jagged smile barely visible through the gloom. It's not exactly the Lich. It's something older than memory, something tied to his origin. And this figure doesn't speak in words, it speaks in feeling. Loneliness, hunger, power, and most of all, temptation. Why be small, the feeling says, curling around him like fog. Why be weak when you could be everything? Sweet Pea wakes up in a cold sweat. Tree Trunks rushes in, holding him, humming softly, brushing his glowing green hair away from his forehead. But that dream doesn't fade like most dreams do. It stays with him, like something tattooed under his skin. And here's where it gets really interesting. Sweet Pea doesn't give in. Even as the whispers grow stronger, even as the weight of what he used to be tries to drag him down, Sweet Pea does something so simple, yet so powerful. He tells the truth. Not to Tree Trunks, not to Mr. Pig, not even to himself at first. But one day, sitting out under the stars in the backyard orchard, with the glow of candy lights soft in the distance, he finally says it out loud. I feel wrong sometimes. And that's it. Just those words, just that little confession. But sleepyheads, that's how healing starts, isn't it? Not with dramatic speeches or epic quests, but with quiet honesty, spoken into the night, even when you're not sure anyone's listening. And do you know what Tree Trunks does? She doesn't flinch. She doesn't tell him to stop feeling that way. She doesn't give him a lecture about how everything's fine. No. She just leans over, rests her tiny elephant head against his, and says the softest, most powerful thing you could ever tell someone in that moment. It's all right to feel wrong sometimes, sweetie. You're still mine. You're still good. And for a moment, that whisper inside him weakens. It's still there, yes, still waiting. But the power of being seen, the power of someone choosing you, even with your shadows, that's stronger than any ancient evil could ever understand. But this is adventure time, and nothing stays calm forever. Because while Sweet Pea is fighting these battles inside himself, something else is stirring in the multiverse. Something connected to that shadowy figure in his dream. Something ancient. And that something, it's coming for him. And next, we'll drift into that confrontation. But for now, just rest here, in this orchard, with the candy lights blinking gently behind the trees, the hum of Tree Trunks' lullaby floating through the air, and the softest hope pressing against the dark. You're doing great, sleepyhead. Stay with me. The confrontation begins not with fire, or lightning, or the shattering of worlds, but with a feeling, like a chill rolling through the orchard, curling around the trunks of the candy trees, rustling the leaves with a sound like distant whispers. And there, at the edge of Sweet Pea's vision, That shadow appears again, taller this time, clearer, his jagged smile glowing faintly with that eerie green light, the color of Lich magic, ancient and foul. But here's the thing that makes this moment feel different than all the other scary nights before. This time, Sweet Pea doesn't run. He stands in the orchard, bare feet in the soft dirt, tiny fists clenched at his sides. The whisper is louder than ever, curling around his ears, pressing into his thoughts like thick fog. The temptation, the promise. It's all there. You don't belong here, it breathes. You belong to me. You were made for ruin. Stop pretending. But Sweet Pea, oh, this sweet little boy. He doesn't scream. He doesn't cry. He whispers back, "No, I belong to them." And when he says it, it's not just a statement, it's truth. Solid, real. Not the kind of truth written in ancient books or carved on ruined temples, but the kind that lives in Sunday breakfast with your family, in bedtime kisses, in the way someone makes your favorite pie just because. The shadow falters, the jagged smile flickers, and for the first time, it's afraid. Because darkness, true darkness, doesn't know how to handle being loved. That's when Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig arrive, running across the orchard, shouting his name. Not out of fear, but out of fierce, protective love. And sleepyheads. That's when something beautiful happens. The glow around Sweet Pea starts changing. Not just the green hue of Lich magic, but warm golden light curling at the edges like dawn pushing away a storm. That's what love does. It doesn't erase the darkness. It outshines it. And just like that, the shadow breaks. Not in a big explosion, not with dramatic music. It just fades piece by piece, crumbling like ash in the wind. But don't get me wrong, the story's not over. That whisper, it might come back. It probably will come back. After all, you don't erase a curse like that in one night. The Lich's influence is ancient and tangled and patient. But here's the truth. Sweet Pea is not alone anymore. He never really was, and now he knows it. No more hiding his feelings, no more pretending the darkness isn't there. He knows it's inside him, and he knows he doesn't have to fight it alone. That's how real healing works, isn't it? Not overnight, not in dramatic flashes, but bit by bit, whisper by whisper, night by night. And with every sunrise, that whisper gets quieter, not because it disappears, but because love speaks louder. So next time you're lying in bed, feeling a little strange or heavy, or like there's a whisper at the edge of your mind reminding you of all the reasons you're not enough, remember Sweet Pea. Remember that quiet orchard. Remember that golden glow curling at the edges of the dark. And remember that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being chosen over and over again by the people who see you fully and love you anyway. That's the power of Sweet Pea's story. Not that he was born from destruction, but that he chose something better. And sleepyheads. That's the choice we all get to make every single day. Next, we drift deeper into the echoes of the Lich's curse, beyond the orchard, beyond Ooh itself. What does it mean to truly be free of something so ancient, so powerful, so patient? Oh, we're going to find out together soon. For now, though, rest easy. You're here, you're safe, and you're doing beautifully. Lights low, blankets cozy. I'll meet you in the next chapter. Now that we've drifted through the story of Sweet Pea, we're going to sail even further, past what most people know, past the episodes, past the surface-level lore, into the cracks and corners where strange truths hide, whispering to the curious. Welcome to the realm of alternate Lich versions and hidden lore. This is where things get weird, and I know you love it when things get weird. See, the Lich we know in Ooh is terrifying enough, right? Born from cosmic radiation, corrupted from the start, ancient beyond memory. But the multiverse? It's messy, wild, full of doors left slightly open. And through those doors, echoes of the Lich spill out in unexpected ways. Let's start with a little secret most folks forget about. The farm world Lich. Back in Finn the Human and Jake the Dog, we get to peek into a timeline where things went differently. In that universe, the mushroom bomb never fully exploded. Simon stopped it. The world wasn't wiped into post-apocalyptic ruin, but it didn't exactly turn into paradise either. It was strange, messy, broken in a different way. But hidden within that slightly better reality, the Lich was still there, trapped, frozen in amber, almost forgotten, like an ancient insect stuck inside fossilized tree sap, silent, but waiting. That's what makes the Lich so terrifying, sleepyheads. No matter how you rearrange reality, no matter which choices get made differently, the evil finds a way. It's not about logic, it's about inevitability. Even in Farm World, that twisted green flame of destruction finds cracks to slip through. And here's the really chilling part. Farm World Finn, at one point, touches that amber prison. And when he does, you can see it. That flicker of recognition. That awful connection. Like destiny reaching through glass. Oh, no matter how bright things seem, the Lich is just waiting for the right conditions to thaw out and start over again. But that's only one version. Want to hear another? All right, lights lower, blankets up. This next one is deep-cut territory. Some of you might remember the Lich hand. During the events of the Lich and Finn the Human, there's a moment where the Lich's hand, severed and disembodied, manages to survive separately from the rest of him. It slinks around like a broken spider, full of its own corrupted will, just the hand, still pulsing with that unmistakable green magic. But the strange thing about the Lich hand isn't just that it's alive, it's that it remembers. It remembers all of its ancient urges. Even separated from the full body, that fragment of the Lich knows who it is. It knows destruction. It knows hunger. It knows purpose. Imagine that for a moment, being broken into pieces, shattered across realities, and yet still clinging to your will like a stubborn ember in cold ashes. That's the essence of the Lich. You can't just break him. You can't trap him in amber forever. You can't even kill him, not completely. Because the idea of the Lich is bigger than any single version. The Lich is an echo, a pattern, a cosmic truth written in green flame, repeating itself across realities like ripples after a stone breaks the surface of a lake. It's here that we start to uncover some of the hidden lore, the stuff most people miss unless they're really paying attention to the spaces between the stories. Ready for another hidden thread? It's called the Green Comet Theory. Not every fan agrees on it, but there's a beautiful, haunting theory that the Lich's origin, his deepest core, might be connected to the Green Comet. Remember that comet? The one that represents cosmic change, rebirth, and sometimes destruction? What if the Lich was one of those cosmic visitors once? What if that ancient green comet from beyond the stars didn't just bring destruction? It became it. What if the Lich isn't just some accident of radiation, but a being that has fallen into every reality it could find, wearing the shape of whatever world it breaks? If that's true, sleepyheads, then the Lich isn't just a villain. He's a force of nature, something like gravity or entropy. He's what happens to stories when they go bad. But that's just a theory. floating like dust in the corners of the multiverse. And we've only just started dusting off these forgotten shelves. Don't fall asleep yet. We're going deeper next. So, where were we? Ah, yes. The cosmic wind still whispering through the cracks of the multiverse, swirling around the green comet theory. Let's lean in closer now, sleepyheads, because there's another layer to this, something more personal. If the green comet brought the Lich, or was the Lich in some ancient form, it means that the Lich could be tied to the very fabric of how universes chain. Think about it. The comets in Adventure Time always bring turning points, major shifts, new beginnings, or devastating ends. Finn himself is tied to a comet, his very existence woven from the choices of countless timelines, shaped by the path of these cosmic bodies hurtling through space and time. So is Orgalor, the ancient cosmic entity that tried to consume a comet for power. What if the Lich is the dark reflection of that cycle? A comet gone wrong, not a bringer of life, but of rot. A comet of death, drifting from dimension to dimension, bringing closure to civilizations when their stories go too long, like an ancient editor cutting the final chapter. That idea alone, it's haunting, and it gets weirder the deeper we go. But here's a really strange thread, and it connects straight to Prismo's time room. You remember Prismo, right? Our chill, wish-granting, nap-loving cosmic buddy? He's seen it all, living outside of time, existing as both dream and dreamer, observer of infinite threads of reality playing out like tangled yarn across eternity. Prismo knows about the Lich. And hidden in the layers of Prismo's appearances is this unsettling truth. The multiverse has tried to stop the Lich before, multiple times, and every attempt, it fails, or it creates new timelines, strange distortions, or worse, accidentally helping the Lich spread further. It's almost like the Lich feeds on failed fixes. Every time someone tries to neatly solve the problem, they just split more universes, make more doorways, more cracks for his poison to seep through. Kind of chilling, right? But that brings us to another fascinating hidden lore thread, something that shows up quietly in the background of multiple episodes. The eyes. Yeah, the eyes. Let's talk about those glowing, empty, soulless eye sockets of the Lich for a second. They're not just for show. They're symbols of hunger. In different multiverse theories, eyes often represent awareness, perception, witnessing. But the Lich's eyes, they're the absence of witnessing. Where life once looked out, now nothing stares back. He doesn't see the world, he consumes it. And sometimes, if you re-watch carefully, you'll notice that when characters interact with the Lich, there are moments, tiny, almost imperceptible, where reflections are missing in surfaces. Mirrors don't catch him properly. Pools of water go still. Flames flicker unnaturally. It's like the world itself refuses to fully acknowledge his existence, like reality doesn't want to admit that this mistake was ever allowed to happen. That's what hidden lore feels like. Small echoes. Quiet details hiding in plain sight, waiting for sharp eyes, or sleepy ones like yours, to gently lift the corners of the story and peek underneath. But I know what you're thinking. Are there other versions of the Lich, like ones that were different? Maybe ones that almost became something else? Oh yeah, there are. Let's talk about Golden Lich for a second. This one's a deep cut from the Adventure Time comics. Yes, sleepyheads. The comics expand the lore even further beyond what we saw on screen. And hidden within those pages, alternate versions, strange mutations of familiar villains, twists of familiar heroes. Golden Lich was one of these eerie alternates. Unlike the greenish, death-ridden aesthetic of the Lich we know, this version was shimmering, gilded, like a corrupted sun. Same hunger, same desire for nothingness, but draped in a shell of decaying majesty, like a statue forgotten by time but still wearing a crown. It's not canon to the main show, of course. But that's the beauty of multiverse theory, isn't it? Every version has its echoes, its shadows, its strange cousins lurking in parallel corridors. And here's the most disturbing thing about the Golden Lich. It smiled. Yeah. While the original Lich was this stoic, wordless force of obliteration, the Golden Lich smiled. Smiled as if it enjoyed the unraveling of worlds. It's subtle, but somehow that quiet joy makes it feel worse. Like a cosmic predator that not only destroys, but takes pleasure in it. Don't worry, I'm here with you. Blankets up, lights low. We'll get through this dark forest together. And we're not done yet. There are still other hidden details, tangled threads, and secret symbols to uncover about the Lich's many faces across the vastness of Ooh and beyond. Ready to drift even deeper with me? Good. We'll continue in just a moment. Let's talk Farm World Lich next. Now, Farm World is one of the most fascinating alternate timelines introduced in Adventure Time. Remember that one? It all started with Finn making a wish using the Ice King's crown in Prismo's time room, creating a parallel universe where Simon never put on the crown. No crown meant no apocalyptic mushroom war. Humanity thrived, albeit differently. But peace never lasts forever, does it? Because lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly hopeful timeline was Farm World Lich. Now, Farm World Lich is particularly haunting because he's basically the same Lich, but discovered much later, buried in ancient ruins beneath the surface. As Finn unearths this ancient horror, it's like waking up a sleeping god. And here's the creepiest part. Farm World Finn himself ends up getting possessed by the Lich. It's not just the return of the old threat, it's personal. This alternate Finn literally becomes the new vessel for destruction. His own flesh, his own memories twisted and hollowed out, all to serve the ancient hunger that refuses to die. And the scene where Farm World Finn finally succumbs to that possession. His body cracking, splitting with sickly green energy spilling out of his eyes and mouth. It's pure cosmic horror, hidden in the cozy art style of Adventure Time, sweet and deadly, like smiling candy with a razor blade inside. But there's another hidden thread here. Why does the Lich keep returning in different forms? Why is every timeline infected sooner or later? Well, what if the Lich isn't just a character in these universes, but more like a rule of existence, like entropy, like death itself, like gravity? No matter how many alternate realities bloom into being, the inevitability of decay always finds its way in, taking a different shape, wearing a different mask. It's as if the Lich is the gravity of endings, waiting patiently for everything to collapse inward sooner or later. And that brings us to another fascinating possibility. Is there a timeline where the Lich won? It's implied if you think about it. If infinite universes exist, then surely one of them must have crumbled fully into his hands. Maybe that's why Prismo and the Multiverse Guardians are always so tense when dealing with Lich-related events. Maybe they've seen what happens when the infection wins. And there's one more alternate version of the Lich worth mentioning before we drift even deeper. Do you remember the Lich King Jake concept art? This one's wild. In early designs for some episodes, the creators toyed with an idea where Jake the dog could be corrupted by the Lich's influence, turning him into a twisted, melting, tentacled form of his former self. A canine harbinger of doom. Imagine Jake's stretchy powers used not for fun, but for terror, slithering, bone-white limbs writhing like something out of a nightmare, a grotesque inversion of his cheerful personality. While it never officially made it into the show, those sketches exist as a what-if, a glimpse into how far the corruption could have gone. And honestly, it's terrifying. Jake is one of the warmest, kindest forces in the series, and seeing him hollowed out by that sickly green energy, it's like watching the sun go out. Alternate versions, hidden lore, secret designs, it all circles back to one creeping truth. The Lich doesn't just destroy people. He corrupts ideas. He takes hope and unwrites it. He takes laughter and replaces it with silence. He infects not just worlds, but stories. And that brings us to one of the most interesting theories whispered about by the deeper parts of the fandom. What if the Lich is a universal constant? What if every universe with life, every strand of storytelling in the infinite multiverse must have its own version of the Lich? Some are subtle, like quiet, creeping corruption. Others loud, cosmic annihilation and doom. But the shape of the Lich doesn't matter. What matters is that no story can continue forever. Every arc, no matter how bright or loving or hopeful, eventually hits that downward spiral. The Lich is the closing of the book, the sound of the last candle guttering out. Even Adventure Time, for all its whimsy and joy, never shied away from that. It always balanced its candy kingdoms with war runes, its silly wizards with quiet despair, its playful tones with existential dread. And the Lich, he's the echo of that dread, hidden behind every colorful door. But don't worry, we're not stopping here. We've only brushed the surface of his strange, multiversal presence. There's more. There's always more, isn't there? Let's keep going. Together. All right, sleepyheads. We traveled pretty far tonight, haven't we? But there's still one last part of this hidden lore to uncover before we drift to the next chapter. We've explored alternate versions of the Lich in timelines like Farm World, glimpsed haunting concept art like Lich King Jake, and entertained the eerie thought of the Lich being not just a villain, but a law of existence itself. But now let's go even deeper, into the strange hidden echoes of the Lich buried in the forgotten parts of Adventure Time's history. One curious detail that longtime fans often whisper about is Orgolorg. Remember that ancient cosmic penguin? The creature formerly known as Gunther before being shrunk down by the Catalyst Comet's energies. Why does this matter for the Lich? Because Orgolorg represents another force of cosmic domination and destruction. A rival in some strange way to the Lich's own hunger for entropy. If Orgolorg craves control and conquest, the Lich craves annihilation. Both cosmic forces, both ancient, both terrifying. It's almost poetic how both beings, at one point, intersect with Ice King's story. The show doesn't spell this connection out, but it's like the multiverse itself has this hidden gravitational pull toward destruction. Whether through the hungry green flames of the Lich or the star-devouring maw of Orgolorg, the gentle surface of Ooh always conceals something apocalyptic just beneath. Here's another odd connection. Catalyst comets. The comets that visit the planet bring with them great change or destruction. Guess what color the destructive ones glow? Green. The very same sickly hue that surrounds the Lich. Coincidence? Maybe. But given how deliberate Adventure Time tends to be with symbolism, I wouldn't be surprised if it was intentional. The Catalyst comets act as cosmic resets, harbingers of great change, rebirth, or death. What is the Lich if not the personification of that cycle's darkest potential? One more hidden piece before we gently close this chapter. Did you ever notice how the Well of Power, the place where the Lich regenerates, is deep beneath the Candy Kingdom? It's not just a random setting choice. That well symbolizes how even in places of innocence, sweetness, and life, corruption can quietly fester underneath. Even the happiest places are built atop forgotten tombs. And the Lich, he doesn't need to rush. He just waits, patiently. Like rot beneath a fresh coat of paint, his influence lingers in bones, in ruins, in whispers. His destruction is never just physical. It's emotional, philosophical, existential. Now, before we drift into the next segment, let's reflect on something. What is the Lich really afraid of? If he represents inevitable destruction, why does he work so hard to cause it? Shouldn't he just sit back and wait for time itself to do the job? Maybe, just maybe, it's because creation terrifies him. As long as there are people like Finn, people who create relationships, build friendships, tell stories, laugh, share bedtime adventures like this one, there's always something new, something he can't predict, something that somehow might defy that spiral into the dark. Maybe that's why, no matter how many universes the Lich infects, there's always someone standing against him. Someone with a silly sword. Someone with a loyal dog. Someone who refuses to let bedtime stories end in silence. And speaking of bedtime, I think it's time we gently close this part of the story, don't you? Segment 6 ends here with echoes of forgotten timelines, corrupted heroes, and green glowing endings. But we're not done yet, not by a long shot. We've still got more worlds to visit, more secrets to uncover, and more gentle steps to take together before we drift off completely. You're doing great, by the way. Wherever you're listening from, whatever time it is, I hope you're cozy, safe, and just a little bit enchanted by this weird, wonderful universe we're exploring together. Lights low, eyes soft, and I'll meet you in the next dream. Let's gently drift even deeper now. We've explored the Lich's dark beginnings, his rampages across universes, and the strange echoes of his influence everywhere we've looked. But tonight, we take a step further into the unknown. If the Lich is a symptom, what's the disease? Let's talk about Golb. Now, Golb isn't mentioned much in the earlier seasons of Adventure Time. He lurks, waiting, hinted at only through the whispers of ancient beings and strange drawings scrawled in forgotten temples. But once we meet him, everything starts to make a twisted kind of sense. Golb isn't just another villain. He's the villain. Or perhaps something worse. Not a villain at all, but an embodiment of chaos itself. Where the Lich represents death and decay, Golb is the physical form of pure, unfiltered destruction. No motivation. No schemes. Just raw, cosmic corrosion. When Golb appears, reality itself begins to fall apart. Shapes break down. Languages melt into meaningless sound. Time unspools like a tangled ribbon. Everything we think of as existence simply stops making sense in Golb's presence. So, what's the connection to the Lich? Some fans have theorized for years that the Lich might just be a servant, or worse, an infection caused by Golb's influence. Remember that haunting moment when we finally see the Lich's full form, skeletal and terrifying, crawling out of that decayed well of power? It's almost like the Lich is a wound in the world itself, a festering sore caused by Golb's mere existence. It's even been said that the Lich's obsession with death isn't personal. It's just a natural extension of the entropy that Golb brings wherever he goes, like a fever symptom of a much deeper illness. Think of it like this. Golb is the storm. The Lich is just the thunder that comes before. What's unsettling is how quietly this all fits into the Adventure Time world. This isn't a loud, obvious connection shouted by the characters. It's background radiation. It's in the ruins, the haunted texts, the broken statues with glowing green eyes hidden in the edges of old episodes. And it gets deeper. Did you ever notice that Golb has that strange warping effect on beings he touches? Remember Magic Man's story? His madness wasn't just personal trauma, it was being touched by Golb. His very mind was eroded by Golb's influence. And what's madness if not the breaking of reality in someone's head? That's what makes Golb scarier than the Lich. The Lich might destroy your body. Golb? Golb breaks your meaning. Who you are, what you remember, even the words you speak. It's like comparing a sword to forgetting your own name. But here's the twist that makes bedtime stories like this feel like dreams inside of dreams. The Lich, the skeletal, green-flamed monstrosity, feared across timelines, wants what Golb brings. He yearns for that emptiness, that destruction, that utter cosmic unraveling. In a way, the Lich worships Golb's influence without ever saying his name. Death is his gift to the universe, offered like a broken flower at Golb's feet. And all of this, hidden beneath Candy Kingdom's goofy adventures and colorful cartoon frames. Isn't that wild? All right, sleepy crew. Let's pause here for just a breath. Stretch your toes, adjust your blanket, take a soft inhale, and exhale with me. We're only getting started on Golb's horrifying mysteries. Next, we'll explore the signs of Golb's influence hiding throughout Ooh, and what that might mean for the multiverse itself. Stay cozy. We drift deeper next. So let's gently wander further into this shadowed territory, shall we? Now that we know Golb's chaotic presence might be the true source behind the Lich's apocalyptic hunger, what other clues have been hiding in plain sight? Let's start with the ancient ruins scattered across Ooh. Ever notice how often old, crumbling temples in Adventure Time have bizarre symbols or impossible architecture? Rooms that don't seem to fit together, hallways that loop in impossible ways. It's like pieces of reality itself have been corrupted. These ruins often sit silent, crumbling, overgrown with vines, but if you look closely, you'll catch the hints. Inscriptions that make no sense, shapes that twist your eyes just by looking at them too long. That's Golb's footprint. An ancient presence leaving behind warped echoes of a reality that's already begun to decay. And it's not just the ruins. Remember the episode with Margles, Magic Man's lost love? The moment where Margles is taken by Golb is haunting, not because of some big explosion or loud, dramatic battle, but because of its quiet horror. She's simply gone, unmade, taken by chaos itself as if she never existed at all. It's so terrifying, and yet it's almost peaceful in how inevitable it feels. Now picture this. The Lich, born out of the destruction of the old Earth, a rotting symbol of death. But what if that rot is like a drop of water compared to Golb's endless cosmic ocean of decay? And what about Prismo? Even he, one of the most powerful beings in the Adventure Time universe, speaks of Golb with fear. In a world full of wizards, talking candy, ancient spirits, and elemental queens, it takes something truly special to make a wishmaster tremble. But here's something else to think about. Something that feels almost unfair. The people of Ooh, Finn, Jake, Princess Bubblegum, they never get the full picture. They fight the Lich. They stop him from spreading death. They save universes, yes, but Golb remains mostly in the background, watching, waiting, uncaring. It's like someone trying to mop up a flooded kitchen without realizing that the entire house is floating out to sea. And remember when Betty sacrifices herself by merging with Golb in an attempt to save Simon? That moment is one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in the whole show. Betty, driven by love, takes that chaos into herself, making a desperate, selfless move to stop the creeping nothingness. But it's also terrifying. Why? Because if love, one of the purest, most human forces, isn't strong enough to stop Golb, what hope do they really have? It paints a deeply melancholy picture of existence. We fight, we love, we sacrifice, but the creeping edge of cosmic entropy just keeps curling in closer. Now, let's pause here together. Adjust your pillow. Maybe stretch your shoulders if you need to. Let's take another slow breath in and exhale gently. We're drifting through heavy ideas tonight, aren't we? But don't worry, I'm here with you. In a moment, we'll start exploring something truly fascinating. The hidden signs that Golb's influence has been present in Ooh since before Finn was even born, and why that changes the way we see the entire story of Adventure Time. We'll keep floating soon. Still awake with me? Let's gently drift even further into the strange, starless sea together. Earlier, we touched on the idea that Golb's influence might stretch farther back than we realize. And that brings us to one of the eeriest threads in the whole Adventure Time universe. The hidden idea that Golb's chaos didn't just show up one day. It's been leaking into existence forever. Think about it. The Mushroom War, the ancient apocalyptic event that shattered the world into the strange, colorful Ooh we know, left behind ruins filled with weird, distorted remnants of technology, mutated creatures, and gaps in history. But could that war have been just another ripple caused by Golb's presence? After all, when you look at what Golb represents, it's not personal destruction. It's fundamental disorder. Even a nuclear war seems like child's play compared to what Golb brings. And there's something deeply unsettling about how forgotten everything is in this world. Sure, apocalypses can erase things, but the weird holes in memory, the contradictory scraps of history Finn and Jake stumble on, the ancient beings who talk in circles or nonsense. It feels like someone took the world's storyline and gave it a twist, like crumpling a page in a book. Maybe that's Golb's most frightening ability, not just to break the world, but to break the narrative itself. And isn't that fitting? For a show like Adventure Time, where wild nonsense and cosmic meaning sit side by side like dream fragments stitched together, Golb is the perfect secret antagonist. The one thing that explains everything by explaining nothing. And then there's the color green. The Lich's horrible burning green fire. The strange green distortions when Golb appears. It's not loud, it's not announced. But that color shows up again and again in subtle, unsettling ways. Even in the backgrounds of certain magical locations, you'll catch glows or flickers that feel just a little off. A color that whispers of rot and ruin, hidden in the beauty of Ooh's vibrant palette. It's like someone stitched a nightmare beneath the cartoon, and only people watching in the quiet of the night, like you right now, might even notice. And here's a soft thought to carry with you as you breathe gently, tucked in for the night. What if Golb wants to be forgotten? What if his greatest trick is convincing everyone that he's just a weird cosmic being off to the side? While meanwhile, every war, every villain, every crack in the story of Ooh starts with a faint green glow and a hum that no one can quite remember hearing. It's not the kind of evil that shouts. It's the kind that whispers, curling around your memories until you're not even sure what the original story was anymore. All right. Let's pause here together. Time for a little stretch, or just close your eyes if you want to. Next, we'll be diving into how Betty's sacrifice might not have been an ending at all, but just another beginning in Golb's endless unraveling. Let's gently close out this part of our journey by circling back to one of the most haunting moments in Adventure Time, Betty's sacrifice. When Betty merges with Golb, it's framed as this bold, loving act. She's doing it for Simon. It's beautiful. It's tragic. But if we peel back the layers, softly, gently, we realize something chilling. She didn't defeat Golb. She joined Golb. It's never fully explained what happens inside that swirling mess of chaos. Does Betty's consciousness continue on in that twisted void? Does Golb absorb her, or does she change him in some tiny, imperceptible way? What's unsettling is that we don't know. It's like staring into deep space and wondering if someone somewhere is staring back. And here's the twist. What if Betty becoming part of Golb is exactly what he wanted all along? Think about it. Golb is chaos, pure disorder. What's more chaotic than mixing a fragile human consciousness, filled with love and sacrifice, into an ancient cosmic force of oblivion? It's like introducing a wild spark into a bonfire already out of control. We like to believe that love will conquer all, that Betty's act was heroic and final. But in the strange logic of Adventure Time, things rarely tie up so neatly. Sometimes love makes things messier, not cleaner. Sometimes love isn't a happy ending. It's a doorway to something unknown. And that unknown, that's Golb's domain. Now drift with this idea. Golb doesn't attack. Golb waits. He's like rust, or rot, or dreams forgotten by morning, slow, silent, absolute. While Finn and his friends fight their battles, build their kingdoms, forge friendships, and save universes, Golb is still there in the background, like a word on the tip of your tongue you can't quite remember. And that's why the story of Adventure Time hits differently when you sit with it at night. It's funny, colorful, chaotic. But beneath all the wildness, there's a quiet hum of existential weight. The idea that no matter how hard you try to fix things, some forces are simply too big, too strange, too old. But here's where we can rest easy together. Even in the face of that kind of terrifying cosmic uncertainty, Finn still fights, Jake still laughs, Princess Bubblegum still builds, Simon still loves. The universe may be broken, but people still care. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Now let's take another soft breath in, and slowly exhale. Segment 7 gently closes here, like the soft shutting of a storybook, just for now. Not forever, just for tonight. Next, we'll explore something just as strange and even more mysterious. What lies beyond even Golb? Are there other forces? What happens after the unraveling? We'll drift there soon. For now, rest easy. I'm here with you. All right, sleepyheads. We've traveled deep, haven't we? From the birth of the Lich, to the unraveling of worlds, to cosmic beings made of disorder itself. But now, let's drift into something softer, something stranger. Let's talk about what comes next. 'Cause here's the truth. Adventure Time never really ends, not in the neat way stories usually do. Sure, we got finales. We saw heroes triumph, we saw kingdoms rebuild, we saw characters change. But that world, it keeps spinning. And its mysteries keep whispering to anyone still listening. So let's listen together tonight, all right? Let's gently float toward that horizon and ask the quiet question, what lies ahead? And to start, we should remember one thing that Adventure Time taught us better than almost any other story. Change is the only constant. When we left Finn and Jake's main journey, the world had shifted. Simon was no longer the Ice King. Bubblegum and Marceline were building their life together. BMO was drifting through time and space, eventually landing on a future a strange, overgrown version of the world we knew, where old things were forgotten and new creatures ruled the wild lands. And yet, that future wasn't dark. It wasn't like the stories where the world falls apart and stays broken. It was weird, playful, silly in that Adventure Time way. Almost like itself knew. Yeah, things get wild. Things get sad. But also, things stay funny. It's the wildness of life itself, a kind of messy beauty stitched together with laughter and tears at the same time. But beneath all that, what happened to the cosmic forces? Golb? Still drifting somewhere beyond, probably. The Lich? Forever echoing through corrupted timelines or curled up asleep inside Sweet Pea, waiting for something. And that leads to a theory I love to explore when I can't sleep. What if the reason always bounces back is because of its weird connection to the multiverse? You see, Adventure Time hinted many times that all these worlds, Farm World, the dimension of Prismos, the alternate timelines with Ice Finn or Vampire King Bubblegum, they're all real. Not just what-if stories, but actual branches of existence. And sometimes they bleed into each other, like forgotten dreams slipping into your waking day. It's like, is too strange to fully break. Like every apocalypse, every evil, every sad ending is just one version of the tale. Somewhere else, a better ending is playing out. Somewhere else, Finn and Jake are still on an adventure. Somewhere else, maybe, even the Lich finds redemption. Strange thought, right? That pure evil could maybe find peace in one universe or another, not because he deserves it, but because in a truly infinite multiverse, everything happens somewhere. The best versions, the worst versions, and everything in between. It's both terrifying and comforting, depending on how you look at it. So what lies ahead for everything? Every version you can imagine. Every story still untold. Every adventure yet to be dreamed up by a sleepy mind like yours right now, tucked under cozy blankets in the soft glow of nighttime. We'll drift deeper into those possibilities next, floating gently into the dream of infinite endings. Now let's gently wade into one of the most beautiful parts of this story, legacy. Legacy is one of those soft, lingering words that drifts through the corners of Adventure Time. It's not about giant monuments or great kings. It's about memories, little ones. Moments that ripple outward, sometimes long after the person is gone. Let's take Finn, for example. We watched him grow from a goofy, yelling, sword-swinging kid into someone who asks hard questions, feels deeply, and sometimes even chooses not to fight. But what's truly powerful about Finn isn't just what he did, it's what he left behind. Think about Shermie and Beth in that far-off future. They stumble across Finn's sword. They don't know the full story, not really. It's this mysterious artifact to them. But that sword, it means something. Not just sharp steel. It's a symbol of someone who tried over and over again to make things right, even when things were confusing or hard or heartbreaking. That's legacy. And it's not just Finn's legacy echoing through time. It's Simon's, too. Simon lost almost everything, and yet his story keeps echoing. His love for Betty, his tragedy as the Ice King, his moments of awkward, forgotten poetry, it's all still there, swirling softly like dust caught in the light of morning. And even the villains have legacies. Sweet Pea is the Lich's legacy, and yet Sweet Pea is also a living contradiction to the Lich's purpose. He's good, gentle, caring. He doesn't destroy, he builds. It's like the universe itself decided to play a little trick on the very concept of evil. Here you go, it seems to whisper. Here's your terrifying harbinger of death, reborn as a shy kid who just wants to play with friends. It's weird. It's hopeful. It's adventure time. And what about BMO? Floating off into the unknown, quietly shaping stories with songs and goofy one-liners, sometimes taking care of future generations without ever needing recognition. BMO is pure legacy, a quiet, constant hum of kindness, sprinkled with wild randomness, always there if someone needs a friend. The more you think about it, the more Adventure Time feels like a bedtime story written by the universe itself. It doesn't explain everything. It doesn't tie all the bows neatly. But it leaves you with these beautiful, strange, sleepy ideas floating in your head. Now here's a cozy thought to drift on. What if you listening right now, are part of that legacy too? Every time you share a favorite story, or laugh at an Adventure Time joke, or remember one of those weird emotional moments when you least expect it, you're keeping the legacy alive. You're one of the voices echoing into the strange, infinite future of Ooh. It's not just about swords or crowns or ancient cosmic evils. It's about you, curled up, maybe blinking a little slower now, letting the strange, colorful world gently color your dreams tonight. And that's the secret of what lies ahead, isn't it? It's not just what's next for Ooh. It's what's next for you. We'll drift deeper together in a bit, but for now, breathe soft, hold that thought gently, and let's wander a little further soon. As we keep drifting forward, there's another beautiful question that hums beneath all of this. Can things truly change? Adventure Time never gives us simple answers. It's messy, beautifully messy. Think about Princess Bubblegum. She's a ruler, a scientist, a protector, but also someone who's made mistakes, big ones, created entire civilizations that ended in ruin, tried to control too much, hurt people, sometimes by accident, sometimes out of fear. But in the end, she tries again. She listens a little more. She lets others in. Her story tells us that you don't have to be perfect to be part of the future. You just have to care, to try, even if you fail sometimes. That's the pattern that runs through the whole world of Ooh, failure, regret, learning, trying again. And somehow, that's comforting, isn't it? Because maybe life isn't about achieving some perfect, heroic ending. Maybe it's about the weird, awkward little steps we take over and over, learning as we go. And then, there's Jake. Jake is wild, playful, lazy sometimes. But when you peel back that stretchy, magical dog surface, there's something deeply wise inside him. Remember when he talked about the nature of life and death with Finn, lying under the stars? Jake gets it in this soft, goofy way. Even his journey at the end of Adventure Time feels like a gentle nudge toward peace. He's not afraid. He trusts that things flow onward, even if we don't fully understand what's next. His legacy is laughter and understanding, both swirling around each other like lazy fireflies on a summer night. And here's where things get really dreamy. The multiverse isn't just about distant dimensions or weird alternate versions of characters. It's also about possibility. Every choice, every moment, little branches stretching outward in infinite directions. You sitting here with me right now, you're part of that multiverse. The one where you chose to listen to bedtime lore, to think about cartoons, to be curious about strange, gentle questions. And that's beautiful. One of the quietest lessons that Adventure Time leaves us with is that the universe doesn't always give you clear answers. But it does give you moments of connection, friendships, mistakes that turn into lessons, silly adventures that accidentally lead to deep truths, and through it all, hope. Even when the Lich rises, even when Golb brings chaos, even when empires fall or ice crowns shatter, someone somewhere always chooses kindness, always tries again, always tells another story. That's what lies ahead. Not a perfect world, not a flawless ending, but possibility, new stories, new laughter, maybe new mistakes too, but always with that tiny glowing thread of hope stitching everything together. So, as you lie there now, sinking deeper into the softness of night, imagine yourself holding that thread. It's light, warm, quiet, and it's yours. Adventure Time might be wild, strange, and full of candy kingdoms and vampires, but at its heart, it's about that thread of trying again, of learning, of becoming. And that is what we'll keep following next, gently, as we move toward the close of our sleepy journey together. Now let's keep wandering forward, nice and slow. And now, here we are, at the edge of the story. Not the end, though, because Adventure Time never really ends, does it? It just keeps unfolding, like ripples in a pond, stretching out further and further with every curious mind that wonders, what if? Finn and Jake's journey showed us that even in a broken world, even with mistakes trailing behind you like shadows, there's always another step forward, even if that step is uncertain, even if you don't know exactly where it leads. Remember that gentle truth. The universe is weird, messy, heartbreaking, and absolutely beautiful. The Lich may rise again in some timeline, in some strange ripple of the multiverse. Or maybe not. Maybe, just maybe. Someone somewhere will stop him before the corruption spreads. Maybe Sweet Pea will stand taller. Maybe Simon will find a softer ending. Maybe Golb's chaos will flicker for just a second, and then fade. Or maybe we'll just keep spinning stories about them forever. Because in a way, that's how evil is defeated. Not just through swords or spells, but through stories. By remembering. By imagining better futures. By telling tales of hope even when the night feels heavy. And speaking of night, I hope yours is feeling soft now. Think about all the characters we wandered with tonight. Finn, standing tall against impossible odds, learning as he goes. Jake, stretching and laughing, finding peace with uncertainty. Marceline, carrying old grief but still singing her heart out. Princess Bubblegum, learning that control isn't everything, and that love is stronger. And even Simon, burdened by the crown but still holding on to little sparks of humanity. They're messy, complicated, just like us. And maybe, just maybe, that's why we love them. As you lie there, feeling the weight of the day start to drift away, remember, you're part of this story too. Not in some far-off magical land of ooh, but right here, where imagination turns ordinary moments into extraordinary adventures. You're part of this strange, beautiful multiverse, writing your own chapter, one sleepy breath at a time. So, before we close this sleepy journey, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, for caring about these stories, for making this little corner of the internet a cozy, curious place full of wonder. And now, with the soft hum of the night wrapping around you like a warm blanket, just breathe, nice and slow. Let the gentle weight of this story drift across your mind like soft tides on a quiet shore. Adventure Time may be full of chaos, danger, and weird candy people, but underneath it all, it's really just about trying, about making friends, about learning, failing, laughing, and learning again. And that's what you're doing too, right now, in your own little way. So go ahead, sleepyhead. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift out into the weird, wonderful space between dreams and stories. You deserve this rest. You deserve this peace. And when you wake up again, when you step into your day, maybe you'll carry a little bit of this softness with you. A reminder that no matter how strange or difficult things might get, there's always another story. Good night, traveler. Thanks for coming along for the journey. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay kind, and until next time, sweet dreams.